Anyway, hello, everybody. I can't really do the hello video on demand. Have it. Hello. Hi. Don't do that. What's up, Never Neverine? Hello, Daniel Friedman. Not Pearl. What's up, Tucker Bird? King Gurk. I hope everybody is doing well. Actually, I think I failed a little bit, but not completely. In that one of the things I promised we would do today is we would look over these issues, like Arduin, Grimoire, the other thing. But I don't really have my camera set up to do that. I mean, usually when we do it on Twitch, I just hold the manuscript up to the camera and show you, and otherwise I just read the stuff. But it would be nice if I had like a camera pointing down. The problem is that the camera I would use to do that, unless I've got Droid Cam on this phone, which I don't think I do. It's D for Droid. Nope. No. So the thing is, I don't have. I mean, can I? What? Why am I making this noise? Well, it doesn't matter. We'll play it by ear. So, for instance, we should put some music on in the background, right? Are there mods here? Chris Curran, I think you're in the wrong chat. I don't know what you're talking about. It happens a lot. People show up in the wrong chat and they say random non sequiturs, and I'm like, I don't think that person is in the right place. This, for instance, this would be. I should get some more of these. Cater Schatzman just bought the Elusive Shift. I think a lot of people did that. Some of these pages are a lot harder to read than others. And I also got Arduin here, and what I should have done was I should have tried to pick up. I thought about it. It's expensive. If I can afford it, if I can afford to play Star Citizen, I can afford to buy old out of print zines. I wanted to get the Necromican, which took me a long time to just pronounce because my brain, my mouth all want to go Necronomicon, but nope, it was called the Necromican, and the Necromican. David Santos, no. It's a good question though. The Necromican, I actually I had my friend of mine, Brad's brother Matt, had a copy of, and he used to use, there were like 10th level spells in there, which is a very 1970s, late 70s idea of game design, right? Is you've got wish at 9th level, but if there are 9th level spells, surely there must be 9 plus 1. There must be 10th level spells, and you're like, what? How exactly? How do you get more powerful than some of these spells? And you look at them, and they're really cool and over the top and very, very metal in that kind of pulp sorcery way, Conan, that kind of stuff. But I remember Thoth Amon's Organ Request, which is a 10th level spell where you could be like, your heart, please, and somebody's heart would. Which of course, there's already lots of stuff like that at 9th level. But they're gaming nerds in the 70s, and they hadn't really figured out game design yet, so they couldn't resist. But the Necromican was super popular. I knew many people that loved and poured over it. Do I think, hello, David Santos, I hope you're doing well. Do I think Draw Steel can avoid the pitfalls you were talking about? I was thinking about when reading the Elusive Shift. Well, there are a lot of pitfalls. Actually, no, the Elusive Shift, it's funny because I just, literally yesterday, finished listening to When We Were Wizards, which is it's sort of the it's the podcast of a documentary movie that didn't get produced. So it's literally like listening to a documentary movie, including the way they interview people and stuff. Tons and tons of interviews. Almost the whole thing is interviews with all the folks from 70s TSR, including, and this blew my mind and it made my heart swell 3 sizes, Dave Wesley. I was like, Dave Wesley, I've never heard that guy's voice before. And to my way of thinking, based on my knowledge of the origin and history of the hobby, if you were to ask me who invented role-playing, as in role-playing games, I would say Dave Wesley, the Brownstein. It's got all the bits. The only thing that was different about it was it wasn't explicitly cooperative. Okay, fair enough. But listening to When We Were Wizards, which is sort of the podcast version of The Game Wizards, which is an earlier John Peterson book, was very, very interesting. But I don't know that I was really the target audience for it. I think The Game Wizards is was the book for me, but I've talked about this on stream on Twitch last night, but When We Were Wizards their goal is to get you to feel like you understand the personalities involved in 1970s TSR, and thereby understanding the personalities of the people involved, you will better understand the decisions they made. And I understand that, and I appreciate that, but to me, it's a lot of gossip, right? It's like he said, she said, and I don't know these people. And so when you hear people like Rose Estes talk about Gary, right? She has her own point of view that she built up from years of dealing with that dude and the fallout of his nonsense. But would I have come to those same conclusions if I had been there? I have no idea, right? So to me, there's always a bit of like, I get it. How else are you going to do it? But at the same time, it did feel like a lot of gossip. But When We Were Wizards is super interesting. And in fact, my general manager and I both finished that podcast on the same day, and we were just messaging. I was like, either there's a major problem in the company or the world, because I just got like 27 messages to our general manager. I'm like, oh, what's going on? But he had just finished the Elusive Shift. He had just finished When We Were Wizards and was talking all about the problems that they had. And it really, how does Draw Steel avoid the problems of the Elusive Shift? I don't know what the problems of the Elusive Shift were. I thought it was brilliant. How do we avoid the problems of 1970s TSR? Well, there are a couple of ways. But one of them was like Gary seemed to believe that he was TSR in any meaningful sense. And so he could sell shares of TSR without actually giving anything away because it was him. And when it became more and more obvious that wasn't true, he sort of switched tack and decided that he was Dungeons and Dragons, right? And that therefore, and it's like, anyway, it's we're not going to make those mistakes. We're going to make crazy different mistakes. Excuse me. Yeah, White Argus. It's the Elusive Shift is a university press book. So they do release, meaning like literally the university, MIT, printed it. I've got lots of university press books. They tend to be like, they start at $60 and go north of there. It's not unusual if I want to read about the hypothesis that Basque is a Proto-Indo-European language, that I might have to shell out $300 for that book because it's a university press book and they do really short print runs, and they are not, they're basically university print press is often, we're going to print this person's book so that other people can cite it, right? That's one of the reasons they're so expensive, is because they do really short print runs. They're not as far as I know, they're not for-profit companies, or at least they're not principally for profit. So yeah, I'm not surprised that the Elusive Shift is quote unquote out of print. They probably didn't print that many in the first place, but you can get it you can read it on your phone, you can read it on your tablet. Just download the Kindle app and you can get it on Kindle. I actually reached out to John Peterson a couple of months ago or weeks ago and asked if he would be interested in having me do the audiobook, because it bugged me that there wasn't an audiobook. And I was so enthused by this book, and I'm like, people need to know about this. I'll do it for free. I'll just go. I know how to, I've spent hundreds of hours in recording booths and studios. I could easily do it. I mean, easily, it wouldn't be easy. It would take a lot of time and work and effort. But I would be willing to do it. And he put me in touch with MIT Press, and they're like, we don't really do audiobooks. So if you want to license it from us and then produce the whole thing yourself, I was like, I will absolutely drive up to LA and walk into a recording studio and donate however many hours it takes to get this recorded. But actually licensing the book from them, paying money to them, so that we have the rights to the audio, or I have the rights to the audiobook, and then us booking getting the engineer, getting a director, booking the studio time and all that stuff. I was like, I even talked to my general manager, and he was like, yeah, we could do that if you wanted to. And I was like, we got other stuff to do. So it would be great if there were an audiobook. And I think there are rumblings that something like that might happen. I don't think I'll be involved with it, but you never know. The future is uncertain. Eat your dessert first. Let's put some music on. Music. Actually, we got to be careful, because I noticed last night some of my jams got blocked by Twitch. All it does on Twitch is it mutes it, which I like, but then at the same time, actually maybe I prefer YouTube's method of you don't get punished. They just monetize the video and give that money to the rights holders. I'm like, all right, that's fine. I don't give a shit. But let's see what happens. Actually, let me turn this down so you guys don't get your ear holes blasted, and see what happens if we just click play on the jams playlist. Let me scrub forward and find a peak of audio that I can set a level to. That's pretty good. Actually, there might be a better. What about this guy? I remember this one being really good. Actually, what about this one? Oh, Moderat? Lane 8. Let's do lane 8. That's a little good beeps and boops in the background. By the way, I hope you folks liked the patch. Very, very, very interesting patch. I should show it off with a close-up or something, but that's the Octone sequencing the Dresno, which is taking the Octone's CV and converting it into an 8-bit value where every bit is a gate, open or closed. And then those gates, open or closed, are opening the VCAs in the Spherical Wavetable Navigator, which so you get, and I haven't even started with that. I want to dial in, you can dial in each channel of the SWN to be different octaves, to have different patterns of LFO, different speed of LFO. So I think you could really get some interesting shit in there. Oh, hey, congratulations, DM Red. Wow, very nice. Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. I'm glad that you are well. And may the future be better for you than the past. have ever run a grim, dark D&D game. Not in the sense that you mean. I've run D&D games for, I remember I ran a zeroth level D&D game using the Greyhawk Adventures rules, slightly adapted, and I still find those inspiring, and I would like to see something like that for Draw Steel. I think it's easy to homebrew once the game exists. Or, by the time the backer packet comes out, or I should say once the backer packet comes out, I think at that point you could homebrew start the 0 to hero gameplay loop inside Draw Steel. I think you could absolutely do it. I think it'd be a lot of fun. And there'd be lots of different ways to do it. And the idea was the players, this is, my 80s, 90s, early 2000s D&D group. It was my friend Jim, it was his friend Steve Kish, rest in peace. And the idea was they were all playing kids. They were playing, and there was like one adult. Like my friend Craig was playing the adult, a monk he was a monk because he had served in a war and swore off violence and was never going to pick up a weapon again, which I thought was a great backstory for a character, for a monk in D&D, right? So he wasn't like, he could do the things he did because he practiced, he trained without weapons because he's like, I'm never going to pick up a weapon. I'll still defend myself, right? But I'm never going to pick up a weapon again. And I thought that was a great spin on that kind of vaguely East Asian martial arts stuff that you get in those D20 fantasy games. And it was a lot of fun. I remember my friend Steve was like, he was in a very complimentary mood, and he said all D&D games should start like this, because he loved the idea of playing like a teenager, basically, who there's some emergency and the kids on bikes, right? The kids band together and they set out to do something, and each of them are apprentices to various people in town, right? Very Village of Hamlet, right? Where there's a wizard over here and there's a druid out there and stuff like that. So each of the kids was apprenticed to one of these teachers, and keep in mind, these are adults. These are people in their 30s playing teenagers, and it's kind of where these aren't those characters, but it's kind of where the idea of Jeremy and Dade and Wenna and Meliora, which are kind of the running example in MCDM 5e products. They're all kids. That's where that comes from. It's that idea, not those characters per se. And that's as close as I ever came to running a really kind of like, I was never, because that's the thing about the Elusive Shift, is the thing that you learn by the time you get to the end of the book is there is no such thing as the original style of play. As soon as there was D&D, there were people doing basically Critical Role with it, and there were people doing basically the Gilded Hole, power gaming, power fantasy, just leveling up. It's us versus the dungeon, which is to say us versus the director. It goes all the way back to 1974, and there are roots going back to like 71, 70, 69. So my friends and I in the 80s, we were coming up in a post Gilded Hole world where, it's like 79, 78 that you get against the Cult of the Reptile God, which is generally considered the first adventure with a story. You don't understand why it's called the Gilded Hole. It's a dungeon that you go down into a hole to get into. Down the hole into the dungeon, and and there's a lot of gold down there. That's where the gold is, because that's what the treasure is. You get XP. Not only do you get gold for gold, you also get XP for gold. So you were highly motivated. So the hole is gilded. It's a very reductive way of describing that game style. But you could argue that game style is a very reductive way to play. And so my friends and I were already in the 80s, 85, 86, 87. We were already playing in narrative-based games, as they would have called it in the 70s. Now they just call it D&D. But back then, that was just one way to play. And so, no, I don't think I ever really played that kind of pure dungeon crawler, like my friend George Vasilakos said when he showed me Hero Quest or whatever it was, and he was like, when this came out, my friends and I stopped playing D&D. I was like, what the fuck, right? But he was contemporary, and he was my age. He was exact contemporary of me. We got into the hobby at the same time, and we both became professional developers at the same time. And all he wanted was the Gilded Hole. All he wanted was go into the dungeon, beat monsters, get treasure, level up, get more powerful. The power fantasy, right? Very close, by the way, to the superhero fantasy. And I was blown away, that was how he played. But no, my friends and I were already like, wow, you can do politics with this. You can do, there was romance, and there was a lot more romance in our games when we were teenagers and in college than there would be later on in life for some reason. Ender C says, do you think crows might scratch those with a grimdark itch? I don't know anything about crows, except it's the gritty, dark fantasy, low level, track torches, track arrows game That's our name for that game, if that game ever happens, which is going to be a little while because, you know, it's James's baby is my attitude. Like James would be the game director on that. He might also be the lead designer. That's for future MCDM to figure out. But that's a thing he wants to do. I also want to do it, but I would be taking a step back and just being the director of product development in that context. Just making like, yes, we should make that game. But we got to make a lot of draw steel first, I think, before that. Do I think there's a place for that style of play today? Of course, absolutely. Every way, I mean, I've said this a million times in a dozen videos. Every way people have ever played D&D or fantasy role-playing or role-playing period, every way people have ever done it is still fun if that's your style and that's your taste. And another thing is, I think people, the algorithm, I think, encourages factionalization. The algorithm trains people to become more and more partisan, right? And so maybe you don't, but like, I was gonna say, you gotta give the wankers a break because like, if you met them, you know, I'm sure there are people who only play one way, but I like all different kinds of games and all different kinds of play. Right. And so to me, that classic power fantasy dungeon crawl, I would love that. But you know, the action hero game, which is, I think, Draw Steel is more explicitly, you're an action hero. Love that. Just be about something is my attitude. Just be about something. Pick something and do it. All right. Don't just vaguely, obliquely reference all these different things and then be like, I guess you could do this if you want, and there's no support for it in the rules. So yeah, I think every way to play. The trick to me, and I don't know, it's obvious to me that I am different from a lot of people in the community because I used to be like this when I was a young person, especially once I became a professional game developer. I was constantly surrounded 7 days a week with gaming nerds, right? Because I went to gaming nerd company every day, 5 days a week, and then I hung out with gaming nerd friends on the weekends and after work. So I had multiple groups that I could play in, and that meant, especially when we were teenagers and in college. I mean, and my group and I were really serious all the way into like 35, 38 years old. We played all the time, so we could be picky is the point I'm making. We played so much, we could give a shit about different rule sets. We could care about different settings. We could care about them. Are you kidding me? Right? Because there was so much on offer. We were playing so much. And there were so many people in the group who were eager to run. There was no shortage of directors. So there was always opportunities. We had more opportunities to play. I should say we played so much, we could do all sorts of stuff. But now that is not true for me. And now my attitude is like, I don't care. It's all great to me. I would play anything if a friend of mine that I knew like in real life was excited and wanted to run for me. It's that simple. It doesn't matter what the game is or the system or the style of play. If somebody's like, I want to do this, I'll be like, that sounds great to me. And it's their enthusiasm. So this comes up all the fucking time on Twitch when people are like, what's your favorite blank? Or would you play in this? And I'm like, of course I fucking would. If I had a friend of mine who was like, oh man, I can't wait to run blank for you, I'd be like, sounds great, I'm in. Because it's their enthusiasm that makes me interested. I am no longer principally interested in the game system or the setting. I am interested in people I know who are really jazzed to run something, and that enthusiasm is what's going to make me happy. So I would absolutely play under any set. I'd play Shadow Dark. I'd even go back to 1974 D&D. I think AD&D, I don't know if I could go back to AD&D or 3rd edition or any of those because I don't think the juice is worth the squeeze. You know, at the time I was soaking in that stuff, and you just took it for granted. You got to learn these rules, and so we learned them. But loading all that shit back into my head meats, my brain is occupied with other shit these days. What's up, Brian Lichtenberg? What's up, Nayar? Parabola Subsibsis. Did you folks read the Gods and Religion section in the Patreon? If you want 16,000 words of Matt Colville original world building and nonsense, and why would you want that? But it's up there. $8 a month. It's the best deal in tabletop. That's not true. There are probably better deals, but Duke Nukem. I don't think that's your real name. How do I feel about Dark Sun being ignored by the Seattle folks? I don't give a shit. I don't care. I basically do not care what they do. They didn't come up with Dark Sun. Why would you care what they did with it? And the thing is, you've got Dark Sun. You've got a couple of different editions. I mean, I thought 4th edition Dark Sun, which I played and my friend Jordy ran, I loved 4E Dark Sun. That was great. But I also loved, I liked, and I wish I had, I should go get, because we have our next in-service in January, and I really want to show the team how the Dark Sun adventures, they only did a couple of these, I think, how they worked. The flip book style I thought was really innovative, and was like, you could steal that idea. It's super, super cool, super easy. So yeah, I don't know, like you want to run Dark Sun, run Dark Sun. Why do you care what the people in Seattle are doing? They didn't make that game, and the people in charge there are not game developers. Oh, Jaybird read it. The Saint Esselt of the Eye of Hate. They thought it gave them power, and it did. Yeah, 3.5 Stargate Productions. I thought 3.5 was incredibly well designed. Sort of the first edition that was designed, as opposed to just cobbled together. But it was so robust, and that was what excited us. It's often the case that a new edition of the game comes out and people get really excited because of the ways in which it is new, and then after a couple of years, you start to feel like, there's got to be a better way. Because in 3rd edition's case, for me at least, and many of my friends, it was just the rules were so robust that they weighed you down, and it was like, guys. Anyway, what's up, artisanal brand? Yeah, but what is official? Well, first of all, Duke Nukem, what would official support mean? Why do you want official support if it's going to be bad and junky and you're going to hate it? You don't know that them supporting it means that you're going to like it, right? And so what you should care about is it any good? And that requires people with a certain amount of talent and who actually care about and understand that thing. And isn't that you? Can't you do that? What's stopping you? Thoughts on making anything about the new DMG? No, I might have a video in me about the new rules, but people aren't going to like it because I'm not going to be talking about anything that they want me to talk about, which is maybe a reason not to do it. But I don't really care about what those folks do. I wish them luck. I've worked under corporate under unthinking, cruel, and capricious corporate masters. I do not envy them. I'm happy to be. Well, I used to work there. They fired me. Adios, vaya con Dios. Right. I wish them luck. But I do think that if you look at, I didn't know what 2024 D&D was going to be about. Like what was the reason for doing this, right? And I was vaguely hearing some talk about rules changes and stuff like that, all of which sounded like, to me, like it didn't sound like a new edition. It sounded like errata, which is there should always be. It should be evolving and changing to respond to how people use it, right? That's a big part of our attitude toward Draw Steel is that we're going to make the game that we want to make, and then we're going to give it to the people, and then see what they do with it, right? And if the majority of people take it in a certain direction, we will follow that, right? That's how I think what good game development is about. So I looked at very briefly, I looked at the 2024 Player's Handbook, and I was like, oh, I see what they're doing. They're trying to reach back in time, right, to 2013, whenever the 5e Player's Handbook came out, and just reskin it as though they knew it was going to be a hit, which they didn't know. They thought it was going to be a legacy product. You can hear interviews with the people that worked on 5th edition. They talked about how they thought they were going to get their pink slip like every day, right? They said they should call it D&D Last. These are the people that worked on it, folks. They said they should call it D&D Last because the folks at Hasbro cared so little about it. They just wanted to get something out the door, close up shop, which is a classic product. Like Games Workshop does this all the time. Nobody bats an eye. They used to like release an edition of Talisman or Mordheim or whatever, and it would do really, really well, and then they would pull it off the shelves. You'd be like, wait, what? I was playing that. And they're like, yep, we're just going to, in another 10 years, we'll come out with another edition. And, it's a very popular way of treating brands, right? Where you spend some money, release a product, and you don't support it, you just move on. And then 10 years later, then that's the one that's on shelves for however long. And then 10 years later, you dust it off and you do something new with it and do it again. And that's what their plan for 5th edition. And then Critical Role and Stranger Things came along, and there was a huge explosion of interest in Dungeons and Dragons in general. And that's not what 5th edition was designed for. It was designed to be a legacy product. So there is none of this stuff in it that there is in the 2024 Player's Handbook, where, for instance, I assume people notice this. I don't really pay attention to this discussion online. There's a picture relatively early on that's straight out of the Nintendo playbook, right? Show them playing the game. right? Don't bother. Who buys Nintendo Wii's? Not 9-year-olds. Adults do, right? And so show the adult, oh, look, here's the whole family sitting on the couch with controllers in their hand having a blast, and you can't even see the TV, right? Show the people using the product. So there's a shot, it's a piece of art in the player's handbook. It looks very kind of comic booky, which is, I think, a good there's a lot of really good artists working in that medium that can draw pretty well, pretty quickly, which is what you need for this kind of stuff. And it shows a bunch of people sitting around the table playing the game. Classic. A bunch of people sitting around the table playing D&D, and in the background you can see their characters doing stuff. I have seen illustrations like that before, but I thought, yep. And then there's actually, all right, how do you play? The Dungeon Master describes which is interesting because we were talking about this on Blue Sky about how the game doesn't tell you how to play. And by the way, I don't think that really does tell you how to play. It says the Dungeon Master says something. You listen to what they say, think about what you're going to do, tell the Dungeon Master what you're going to do, and the Dungeon Master tells you what happened. I'm like, yeah, that's like saying you play poker by drawing some cards and then looking at your cards and then betting. That is true. That is how you play poker. But if you sat somebody down in Vegas with only those instructions, they would be really mad at you in about 15 minutes. So yeah, I think actually the answer to the question, where does it show you how to play, is in the adventures. Adventures actually show you, okay, right? And that's why you got to make adventures. That's why I think Draw Steel Year 1 is going to be all about, well, not all about, but it's going to be a lot about adventures. What published setting that didn't make it over the long run? I mean, ultimately, I think like none of them basically make it over the long run, except the ones that the rights holders feel like they need to keep current for brand reasons. But my favorite, I don't know about settings that should or shouldn't be popular. I don't know how you rank that. What does should mean in this context? But my favorite setting was Birthright. I fucking love Birthright. So if you want to know what Vasloria is going to be about, it's going to be a little Birthrighty. I don't think it's going to have that born to I have the magical right to rule. That's not really how Matt Colville products work. Matt Colville products are a little bit more realpolitik than that. But I do think this is going to be a big part of what we talk about in January. I think, but I'm not sure I should be the only one who gets a vote. I think that's going to be a big part of the Vasloria box set, is that carving out a kingdom of one sort or another, depending on your character, from the wilderness. On the cover art of what? Of D&D? No, I don't think about. I think you just heard everything I think about. Do I think Draw Steel will be a good system to run Earthdawn in? I don't know. I don't know. It's a good question. I actually don't know that much about Earthdawn. I've got a couple of Earthdawn products. I was really impressed with it when it came out. And I like the system a lot, and I like the work that they did, very kind of like Fallout, but before Fallout. The work that they did, contextualizing a lot of the weirdness of Dungeons and Dragons, including the fancy and spell system. I thought Earthdawn did a pretty good job. And again, I think that's Greg Gordon, who's one of my favorite designers of that era. He also did the edition of DC Heroes that I really liked. I mean, yeah, I think you could absolutely run Earthdawn and Draw Steel. I don't know why you wouldn't. You know? I don't know what the core gameplay loop of Earthdawn is, the way like I know what the core gameplay loop of 1970s D&D was, right? I don't think Earthdawn is about being a poor farmer who in desperation picks up a sword and goes into a dungeon and gets loot. If it is, then probably not. But if my memory is that it's a lot more heroic than that. The thing about Earthdawn that inspired me and other people here were inspired to do the same thing for different reasons was when you opened up Earthdawn for the first time, especially in that era where so much of the hobby was in black and white, there were all these what they call color plates, a section of the book that was in color. And you get to the character creation section, and all the different species you could play were in color. Now, these illustrations in this day and age would seem a little primitive, but they were at the time they were hugely evocative. And you would open up that Earthdawn book. It was a brand new fantasy game, and it had elf-like guys and dwarf-like guys, and they might even been called elves and dwarves. They had their own vibe, right? But they had all these other crazy alien species. You could be one of the Tuskrang, which is like a pterodactyl man. And I'm like, oh, that is cool. You could be an Obsidian, which is maybe not the best name for a dude made of rock, but you know, I get it. It's cool. You could be a rock dude. I'm like, man, this is so cool. This is what a new game should do. You should open up and go, oh, I get to be one of these? Like, yes. And so that's the thing that inspired me about Earthdawn. Anyway, by the way, is the mod team here? Uriel Haynes. I do not. I apologize. apologize. Mr. Biochronic, I apologize, but that's not a product that I have bought, looked at, or intend on buying or looking at. I might look at it at some point, but it's not. I've got bigger fish to fry these days. I don't really care what that company does anymore. I'm interested in that. I'm interested in D20 Fantasy when the people in charge of the design are also the people in charge of the company. And when that's not true, it's like, all right, well, anyway, I'm not really interested in what the investors care about. I am not one of those investors. No. Where are we at here? Wow, that's a lot of people. I have. Tim Cox asks a great question. Have I been following Dr. Jackson Crawford's read through of the Lord of the Rings? Well, you should go look at his videos and look at the comments, and you might see somebody you recognize very actively posting and responding to him. And he and I should text him. I should text him right now, and because he said, "Hey, not really, Raphael Brando. No, I don't. Not really. No." It's not a bad question, though. He said we should do a video. We should do something together and talk about what I think. And I'm like, I agree. I completely agree. In fact, I was thinking about that. I was thinking about reaching out to Dr. Crawford and be like, let's do a video together and talk about your impressions of these books. And specifically, I would be like, I said, I think we should do one for every book. So Fellowship of the Ring, we do a video because I think it's way more interesting to check in with him and be like, so how do you think the story's going? Rather, and because I think we'd also get a lot of opportunity to talk about all the details he's noticing that I bet a lot of people don't notice, and his linguistic reaction to things, but also the decisions that Tolkien made as a storyteller, which is a lot more where my interests lie. Whereas if we wait till he's done, we'll just end up talking about the book as a whole. So yeah, I think that's probably going to happen. Excuse me. Pawson, no, I think we're definitely friends, and we each have a lot of respect for each other. But like, like a lot of people I know in LA. If I lived in LA, we would probably hang out all the time, but I do not. And having to spend 3 hours in your car to hang out with somebody is a bit much. I do, in fact, I think we're listening to Lane 8 right now. Advice for crafting rules for D&D for adventures such as the Isle of Dread. What kind of rules are you looking for? Isn't there already that module exists and those rules exist. So what else are you looking for? Unless you're talking about like a hex crawl. Craig Argyle Audio says, thank you for the Illrigger. Oh, I'm glad you like it. Yeah. Sadie Lowry shepherded that product into commercialism because the original version of it was just a thing I did for Anna. And so there was a point at which, we had sold that product to people, a lot of people really liked it. And it was one of those things where, like is true, by the way, I think of almost every D&D product, including every official product. I think it is kind of required based on the nature of the game. The nature of the hobby is that, the people do not agree. They're all playing different games. They're all using the same rule set, but they're all making different games out of those rule sets. And so some people had the Illrigger, the original one at their table, fucking loved it. Some people hated it. And so I listened. I was like, okay, well, why? And I would dig around and see, why do these people, what is it they don't like? And, we made a list. Okay, here are the things people don't like about the Illrigger. Let's revise it. And let's just give it to everybody that already bought it. You already paid for it once. Why make you pay for it again? So we agreed. I talked to my general manager and he was like, yep, I think that's a good idea. Make the audience happy. Won't cost that much. So we reached out to Sadie Lowry, who had already done a lot of work with us. And we had a kickoff meeting. This is how we do everything at MCDM, by the way. After we decide we need to do something, whatever that thing might be, write a section of the book, revise the Illrigger, we get all the stakeholders in a meeting. It means the art team, the design team, and whichever freelancer is going to be in charge of actually writing the fucking thing. And in this case, that was Sadie. And we all get together, and typically I, the director of product development, I'm like, okay, this is what I want to achieve from this thing, right? Rules, classes, whatever. It needs to fit in this box, right? But within this box, go crazy. And so we decided if we're going to revise the Illrigger, let's make sure we include a couple more. There's 7 cities of hell. Let's include a couple more subclasses. And Sadie pitched us a bunch of subclasses. That's another thing, is that like, give us, if you're going to work for us, give us a lot of choices, right? And so Sadie's like, what about this? What about that? What about this? What about that? And we were like, ooh, what about this one and that one? She's like, sounds good. And so and then she just scurries away and does it. And she's in charge of getting the testing. Well, not in charge of getting the testing done, but she's in charge of dealing with the testing feedback and stuff like that. And I was really happy with the result. I think she did an A+ job taking that kind of junky homebrew nonsense that I threw together, which had a lot of my attitude toward 5th edition in it. It's like, you want to know what I think of that game? Look at that class. Like, why do you have to play this? You have to play this many hours to get the iconic classic spells. You know, how many people actually play after that, you know, and trying to, but that's not what people want. People don't want me to fix 5th edition, and we don't all agree as to what's wrong with it is another problem. And so that's one of the things people were kind of annoyed by. And I'm like, fair enough. Yeah, there was just, and then there are people out there, you got to know where to look, but they're out there who are real grumpy about the fact that that there are people who judge us on our new products, and they're like, no, those original products are really junky. You shouldn't like anything they ever do. It's like everything we're serious about this is the thing. And when people don't like something we do, we listen and try to figure out why, and then we try to revise it. Well, yeah, Jarrett Jets says, you already paid for it once. Why should we make you pay for it again? Literally the opposite of so many companies. That's awesome. We can get away with that because of how much money our crowdfunders make and how much money our Patreon makes, right? So we could afford to do that stuff. You know, success gives you a lot of options, and it's not fair to judge MCDM based on the same yardstick you judge a lot of these smaller independent companies, where there's no way they could afford to do that. They literally would not have the money. So it's just because of folks like you supporting us that a lot. What feeds your creativity? I think statistically, by observation analysis, I think the answer is Mountain Dew and Cheez-Its, not Cheetos. Nothing wrong with Cheetos, but Mountain Dew and Cheez-Its, I believe, is the answer. What a great question, Pedro Enrique. Hey, Matt. Hello. My campaign is coming to an end. We'll meet again. Don't know where. Don't know when. How would you pitch the idea of DMing to your players? I do not pitch it to them. I say, I'm done. I don't have any content left. If you guys want to keep playing, y'all motherfuckers get behind the screen. Literally, that is what you do. You say, you hold them hostage. Do you want to keep doing this? Well, then guess what? It's up to one of y'all. Now, what I might do is I might nudge somebody if I think they've got the juice for it. You know, I think 2025 is going to be a lot of me running Draw Steel, which folks haven't seen yet. I've streamed a couple of things on Twitch, but it wasn't me behind the screen. It was James usually. And I've talked to Matt O'Driscoll, and I'm like, I'm going to do this, and I want to get a group together and do it regularly again, and maybe even record it, not stream it, record it and edit it a la Dusk, but you've got to run too. And he's like, yeah, I'm down 100%. Let's do it. So that really excites me. Craig Argyle says, do we see a Flea Mortals 2 in our future? I mean, it depends on what our relationship with D&D Beyond is. Right now, it's really good. And but we're not the only fish, and we're not the only fish in the sea. I just realized a fish is singular and plural, which makes that sentence, if you know that phrase, sound a little bit weird. We are not the only guppy in the pond, so to speak. And you know, if we felt like right now our active interest in 5th edition comes from the fact that D&D Beyond is interested in working with us on our stuff. And so if they came to us and said, hey, we think a Flea Mortals 2 would do really well, then that might make it worth us spending the money on it, but it would be a huge distraction for us, right? It would have to be something that we felt we could kind of handle without derailing anything else we're doing, because we don't own 5th edition. Yeah. So our ability to serve Hasbro's customers is incredibly limited because we're not in charge of that game. And we would rather make a smaller group of people way happier, right? And in that manner, grow an audience for ourselves. Because I think we are much better. What did I say about the Illrigger? You know, we spent the money, we revised it, we didn't just revise it, we included new subclasses, we got new art for them, and we just gave it to everybody who had already bought the Illrigger. That is not a thing that a company like Hasbro will do or let you do, right? So we're not like that. Let them take care of their customers, and we'll take care of our customers, and we'll shake hands, and good luck. Van Exelfan says, have you ever done a video about how the gods work in a fantasy world? No, but I did just do a huge, giant fuck off Patreon post about it. Super, super good. I also think I might have another run in the game video in me about world building. Not necessarily how to do it. I've done a lot of those, but why are you making a world? And is there a reason other than you're bored and it's fun? That's fine. I'm bored and it's fun is fine for you and your friends. Absolutely 100%. But if you want to make it, if you ever want to do anything, if you want to share it and you want other people to be interested in it, which why would you do that? But some people do. You should probably have a reason why you are making, or you should have ideas about, this is kind of the break your heart video, but in a different context. And I do that. I'll sometimes make a video that is basically a video I've already made. I'm just saying these things in different ways, which upsets some people who think that they are owed new content. And they're like, I've already seen this video. I'm like, yeah, but I've watched the response to that video I did 5 years ago. And I've seen how people, what points people took away from it. And that is causing me to refine my approach to communicating this idea. Let me say this again. And so you look at that Break Your Heart video, it's all about how you should give a shit about, you should care about, why are there gods? Why are there elves? Why are there elves? You know, maybe that's not the thing that you get a bug up your ass about, but you should care about something, right? There should be you should have some opinions about what makes good world building. If you don't, people will be able to tell. That's it. At the end of the day, most people, your friends, aren't going to care. They're just going to be happy that they get to play in something that's somewhat novel and that belongs to their friend, and they'll think that's cool. But otherwise, if you want anyone else to care about it, I say that, this is my own personal philosophy. You know, some of the most popular D&D settings, I think, are quite junky because the people who author them do not have these opinions and they just dump whatever. And that's what it looks like. The setting looks like they just dumped whatever into this, and there's no rhyme or reason why things are the way they are. And that does not work on me. You know, again, if a friend of mine wanted to run in that setting, I would love it and get excited because my friend is interested. That's their passion is what gets me interested. But me on my own, no, I don't care. That's why I liked stuff like Birthright and Dark Sun, is it had a reason to exist. It had a theme, it had a point, right? It had a vibe, at least, for Christ's sake. And so you gotta have opinions about that stuff. I don't know if I'll make that video, but you kind of just heard it. I'd probably have more examples and stuff. How did MCDM get started? I started a YouTube channel, and I started a YouTube channel about, I already had a YouTube channel, and I was thinking about, I think you'll get this whole video next year, because next year I think is 10 years. I think. Yeah, 2025. I think I started in 2015. I could be a year off. But whenever we hit 10 years, I'll do a video all about YouTube and what I learned on YouTube and the beginning, the middle, and where we are, stuff like that. But I already had a YouTube channel, and I was just trying to figure out, I had a blog, and that blog did pretty well. And eventually I got to the point where the blog post, I was writing the posts that I was proud of, that I wanted to be writing, and they were getting real traction online, and many tens of thousands of people were reading it. And that I was like, cool, I figured that out. What's next? How about a podcast, right? And so my friend David and I did a movie podcast for a while, and we really took it seriously, and we made it a point to see movies together, just like Siskel and Ebert, and then we would, race home and record the episode, and I would edit it, and I would do all the noise correction and all this stuff until we had produced a couple of episodes of this podcast that I felt like was as good as anything I'd heard on NPR. And I was like, all right, and it was slowly building an audience, and I was like, okay, figured that out, now what? How about YouTube, right? I was watching a lot of YouTube, and I was inspired by people like the Green Brothers and MKBHD, early MKBHD, so to speak. And I was like, I could do that. But I need a hook. I need a topic. And I started doing the history of D&D one fighter at a time videos, which were not that fun to do. They were an enormous amount of work, and they didn't get any engagement. I think I got 300 subscribers over those first 6 videos, which were like 3 years. And there's about 30,000 people who claim to be one of those 300 subscribers. And those videos just basically didn't work. They didn't do what I wanted, which is to say people would watch them, but they wouldn't think about them. It wouldn't go online, and it didn't change the discussion online, which is the reason I was doing it. I was trying to give a lot of these, I was kind of trying to do what guys like Glenn Blackout was doing in the late 70s. I was trying to give the discussions online some historical context, and I could tell it wasn't working. You could tell just by looking at the comments. All the comments, a normal video like the Elusive Shift, you look at the comments to the Elusive Shift, and people are like, "Holy shit, I didn't know that. That's interesting." Or they'll be like, "That's not how it happened. I heard this." And you're like, they're engaging with the video. You go and you look at the comments to the history of D&D series, and it's just, "Where's the next one?" It's like, yeah, but that's not what I'm here for. Sorry. I get it that you really liked it. And people are like, "But you don't understand how much I liked it." I'm like, I actually, what I understand is that's not the point. All right. The point is I made those videos for a reason, and it didn't work. Whatever reasons you might have for liking them, that's fantastic. And so I was like, well, I was running D&D at Turtle Rock Studios, and it would just annoy the shit out of me. I've told the story a million times. I apologize to those who've already heard it. It just was annoying the hell out of me that all these players I was running for, who I thought would make great dungeon masters, when I would tell them you should run, they'd be like, "Oh, no, I could never do what you do." And I'm like, "What?" And then my friend Wes, who I liked running for. He was a very casual player, but still a lot of fun. He was just working late one night and saw that we were playing, and I was like, "Hey, come on in." Comes in the conference room, and I said, "Sit over here. Sit on my side of the screen." And so he's watching me run, and he literally starts picking up pieces of paper and looking at them, and he looks at me and goes, "Is this it?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he went, "Well, shit, I could do this." And I was like, ding. And so I started a YouTube channel, and it was relatively successful. I got really lucky is what happened. Right place in the right time. And I was talking about these rules my friends and I used for running domains and attracting followers, and these charts that we used to roll on that were like, 30 to 300 men-at-arms show up, right? But then at the end, you're like, I could get a black dragon, could come work for me. Oh, that's on the evil chart. Where's my character's chaotic good? Oh, goddamn, I could get one of these guys would show up and work for me if I roll really well, right? And that vibe was super cool, and I kept talking about those rules, and I was gonna tart them up and publish them at some point. I figured on Drive-Thru RPG, but I wanted to run a crowdfunder to get the art, mostly to get the art. And I remember, Anna and Jerry and Lars were helping me with that, because that was the price they had to pay if they wanted to play D&D, right? They were like, "We want to play D&D, so Matt wants to do this thing. Let's figure it out." And I figured we'd make about 60 grand. And I figured it was one of those things that we might be able to do this in our spare time, because my friends are mostly millennials, and they would just be complaining all the time about how they couldn't afford a house. And it's like, mostly because they didn't want to make the decisions their parents made to get out, like moving across the country to where land is cheap. They didn't want to do that. That's what my mom did. She hated it, but she got a house. And so I said, well, this could be your second gig, sort of, that we make money off of. And you could, and I thought we would all keep our jobs. I didn't realize that everybody else was miserable. I was happy as a pig in shit in my job. But they were like, as soon as that Kickstarter hit and did like $1 million in the first day, I was like, who even am I anymore? I really had this like existential crisis, because suddenly I didn't need to work anymore if I didn't want to. And what I decided was, I'm a game developer. I'm still a game developer. So yep, let's all hands on deck. And that's where MCDM came from. I was like, we have to hire people. So my friend Steve did this. He's the one, he and I do our synth meet every other week or so, or every third week. It was him that was like, you need to hire these people. You need to start a company. Here's a copyright lawyer. Here's a health insurance guy. Here's a corporate insurance guy. Call these people. You can trust them. They'll set up. Here's this company that will do your taxes and your bookkeeping. One-stop shop. And what I realized was, I didn't want to make a $60,000 product. I didn't want to make a $60,000 PDF and just pocket the rest of the money and quit my job and go live in Cancun or whatever. I had no, which is what a lot of people sort of wanted me to do, because they thought they were going to get more YouTube videos out of me that way. But YouTube was only ever a hobby for me, and that is still true, I think, basically, yeah. And so I was like, well, in order to make these people happy, we need to make a really fucking good product. We got so many people want this. We got to treat it seriously. And so Strongholds and Followers lives in that weird, like, very professional production, because we had the money to do it, and I had already worked in tabletop, so I knew how to do it, but very kind of like hobby design is my attitude. And then Kingdoms and Warfare is getting more serious about the quality of the design. And then Flea Mortals was, we figured out how to do this stuff, I think. Will there be an official MCDM draw steal actual play? Broken says. I mean, you're going to get to watch me running the game. Is that what you mean? And maybe other people at the company will run their own games, up to them. Is a Scion of Orcus in Flea Mortals? There could be, actually in Flea Mortals, no, the Scion of Orcus is not in there. Slacker Cat asks a great question. You should ask that for the Q&A. reading the Gods and Saints post. I could read some of that online. You guys aren't patrons, some of you are, but it's my game. I can do what I want with it. It's what a crazy fucking thing to say. It's my chapter I wrote. It is our game. Anybody that works there could get on Twitch and say whatever they want about the game, or YouTube and feed. Reading the Gods and Saints post really changed the way I understand Ordin and your world. That's one of the reasons I wrote it, because I was like, I'm reading people's reaction online to the way we're doing this. I can tell that they do not understand how like religion works, just like in general, you know, apart from the way it kind of works now on Earth. So I need to write this stuff up. And do I remember how I created that divinity system, or did it just come in freely form? Don't tell anybody. But that's the system in D&D. Shh. What you read in D&D, what you read in the Draw, Steal, Gods, and Religion post is just my version of the actual explanation for how all this stuff works in the 1980 Dungeon Master's Guide. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense. I get it. Cool. Will Dusk 2 be Draw Steal? Absolutely. Yeah, what else would I do it in? I don't know what I would use as a director. I don't know what I would use D20 Fantasy for, unless or until people use it. Like I would use it for superheroes because there's Mutants and Masterminds, which is D20 taken and made. I don't even know if it's really even related to that system anymore. But if somebody took D20 Fantasy and made like a dungeon crawler out of it, I would play that. But isn't that Shadow Crawl? Shadow Dark? So... will the chain return? I would say it's uncertain, and I think it's unlikely, but not impossible. And when I say unlikely, I just don't think, you know, that group of people used to see each other 5 days a week. We all worked together. And now none of us work together. I mean, me and Lars, and that's it. You know, I guess Phil and Tom Not Tom work together. And that's it. We've all gone, we all still live in Orange County though, so it's possible. But I would say it's unlikely. But I'm going to ask him at some point, I think. We've got the heist designed for, I think, Scott, I don't remember his last name, but Scott, our editor, and helping us with layout, I think, worked on it. And so I'd like to run it for them, and that would be relatively easy to do in Draw Steal. Just depends on whether or not they want to play. When do we get Draw Steal in space? Well, that would be the timescape, and that's, you know, probably year 3. Where year 1 is next year. What is up, Map Crow? I hope you're doing well in the new gig. Excuse me. 3, I've only read a little tiny chunk of it because I normally read on my tablet in bed, and that book is way too big to read in that context. So I need to set up a place in my house where I can put a book down and read it, and that's kind of weird and unusual for me. Scott Gray, yep, that guy did a great job on it. I think there's a bit missing. Now that I've read his draft, I'm like, oh, I think there's a bit missing, and I think we could do it in our game with a montage test, which is the gathering information step and meeting actual NPCs in the world and asking, negotiating with them, and trying to figure out what's going on inside Castle Valletta. And that sequence, the casing the joint, the setup, right, gathering information, I think should be a big part of the heist. Anyway. Yeah, Ginger Coleslaw has the right attitude. Says, I'm happy for what the chain is. I would love for it to come back, but I understand the many reasons why it's unlikely. I think Dale Kingsmill made this point the other day, which is like, the Chain of Akron was not like a show. It was literally just Matt and his friends playing D&D. And one of the reasons people didn't like it was because they thought they were getting a show. I don't know why. As far as I know, I never said anything other than I'm going to stream my next game, which I did. Wolf's PC says, are there plans for Draw Steal to come to Fantasy Grounds? Draw Steal is open. The whole thing, the setting, everything, it's all open. You can do what you want with it. If the folks at Fantasy Grounds want to make stuff using Draw Steal, we cannot stop them unless they say it's official. It's official unless they somehow imply that it's that we are endorsing it. If you want to make Fantasy Grounds modules for it, you can. I think people already have for the last packet. So the production quality was insanely high. I mean, yeah, but that's just spending money. That's just spending money. 1337 Rose, having seen your comment on Quinn's Quest, I was watching a lot of Quinn's Quest the other day, and he was reviewing that skateboard game, and I'm like, he knows that Kids on Bikes exists, right? But you know, whatever. I didn't make that comment. I am somebody, I have a superpower that many people lack, and that is I can watch a YouTube video and I can think things about it and not post them in comments. But yes. do I have anything to say about the crossover discussed there? Actually, I was thinking about emailing him like today. Once we're done with this, actually, I get this is my day off. I haven't had this is Thanksgiving Friday, today, tomorrow. I haven't had a break like this in months, and I'm so happy. I thought maybe we play some after this stream. Maybe I get lunch, come back later on Twitch, maybe play some Star Citizen. Haven't done that in a while. Does the game work? I don't fucking know. We can find out together. Maybe I'll explain this patch, put it down on the desk, and show you guys how the Dresno works. It's super fucking cool. But I'm like, I got to message Dr. Crawford about us doing a thing together. I got to make sure I've responded to Matt Baum. He and I want to do another movie watch along. We want to watch Bell, Book and Candle together. We got to figure out how to do that. How do we both remotely watch and stream a movie at the same time where both of us can pause, either of us could pause the movie and talk about it? That would be a 4-hour long stream, but it would be awesome, wouldn't it? I don't know. Maybe I fly Matt Baum down here and we watch it live. I could do that. It's my company. I could do that with my money. So one of the things I wanted to do was email Quinn and be like, so how do you want this to work? Would you like to see a playtest version of the game? Because I think what Quinn does, or Quinn's, I don't actually know, is it Quinn? I've not seen nothing about pronouncing the mighty Quinn. What he does is he plays it with his friends. The games he reviews, he has played like 6 or 7 times, right? And so it's like, okay, well, I think I know his modus operandi. How do you want this to work? Do you want to wait for the game to be finished and we'll send you a copy? Do you want us to send you a pre-press copy? Do you want us to run a game for you? Do you want us to run a game for you and your friends? Do you want us to fly somebody out to you? So me or James fly out and run a game for her. I suspect I know what he'll say. He'll be like, no, when the game is ready, send us a copy and we'll do it on our own. And I'd be like, totally cool, 100%. I want his experience of interacting with MCDM to be positive, regardless of what he thinks about the game. I want him to seem like these guys are professionals and they're fun. And I liked the fact that they reached out to me and we don't care. I probably wouldn't even watch the video, right? Because I know what kind of reviewer he is, and he's going to be very critical of the game, and he's going to talk shit about parts that he doesn't like, which is absolutely what he should do. But I don't need to, it's kind of like, the older I get, the less interested I am in reading reviews, right? I have my own bar of quality for what we did well and what we did poorly, and then I look at the audience largely. So it's up to him really how he wants to do it. I would love the idea of running it for him and his friends, but it seems unlikely because, like I said, he would probably want to play it for real without our help, without being influenced by us. And, I think me or James running it for him and his friends, he would have a really fucking good time. But normal people don't get to have the MCDM dev team fly out to them and run the game for them. So I respect that, but I haven't reached out to him yet. We'll see. I was going to do that this weekend. Well, Patrick Jonice, that's why we put all that shit in the book. Like, have you made a character in Draw Steel? There was a great, I really love this, and it's a result of how amazing our community is, that I was on some Reddit thread, this was weeks ago, and somebody was suggesting Draw Steel as a game when somebody else was like, I'm looking for a game that does this. And then the response that caught my eye was somebody saying, I don't think OP wants that. That Draw Steel is just a combat game. And then the response to that, the number one response to that was somebody go, it's interesting that you're saying that about the only game I know about. This is somebody, not me. This is just you're saying that about Draw Steel. The only game I know about that has an actual system for negotiating with NPCs that requires the players to imagine the NPCs complexly and think about their motivation. I have this now. There may be other games that do that, but this person was like, I've never seen a game do that before. Have you seen the montage system and the research and downtime systems? Like, have you seen the complications you get in character creation and how it sort of makes these things make your character 3-dimensional in a way they're not? Well, that's the thing, is that people imagine that tactical is somehow that there's some kind of like oil in water, like there's some physical chemical reaction that prevents a game played on a grid from having 3-dimensional characters. And I encourage you to think about why that should be, because those two ideas are just, they could absolutely exist in the same game. The one does not exclude the other. The pages don't, page 7 does not know that this other system's on page 27, and the pages start fighting each other and they say, no, this is a tactical game. None of your soap opera nonsense. That doesn't happen. You can put it all in the same game. And in fact, a lot of character abilities when you level up are about doing well in negotiation, doing well in montage test, doing well in the research system. Anyway. We've been live now for a little while. An hour? People are messaging me. Yeah, you can use pans for that. Yeah. This one's called, I got to figure out how Odessa works. I love the fact, my friend. So let's take a look at this issue of, yeah, Quinn's Quest is really good. Is Quinn no longer part of Shut Up and Sit Down? I like those guys. Oh, I saw somebody retract a message. Never seen that before. Yeah, Nicolo Magia, but you got to read the system before you can reject it. I guess that's not true. You can reject whatever you want. Does Drawsteel's design make assumptions about group size? Its design does, yes, but we assume you have a our default is a player, a dungeon master, a director, and 5 players. But we have a relatively robust and well tested and well received system for designing encounters for fewer players or more players. And I've seen people in the chat being like, "Oh, this is easy. All I had to do was ... and it worked." And I was like, "Great, the system seems to be working." What's up, DY11? He does, but he's not as active. Got it. Mr. Biochronic, you can study tomorrow. You got all weekend. When do the backers get the next playtest packet? Justin Seymour. I don't think the date has not changed since our original goal when we crowdfunded it, and that is by the end of December. We want to get the backers sort of the final packet. The game will change after that, obviously, because the next thing that's going to come out after the December backer packet is the finished PDF, right? So the time between then and the finished PDF is us listening to what the backers said and collating feedback and publishing a survey and waiting for them to fill it out and giving them time to play the game and revising. So that's the goal. I don't know, Stargate Productions. It's a good question. I'm really curious about whether or not Quinn's Quest. I'm vaguely interested in terms of I am a YouTuber and I'm interested in what makes a successful YouTube channel. That's all. How Shut Up and Sit Down, which is board games and some card games, is going to fare versus Quinn's Quest, because role-playing games are a much bigger ask than board games. And I get the sense that the landscape has changed a lot in the last 20 years and that you don't really have gaming groups the way you used to have. What I learned working at Wizards of the Coast was even the kind of gaming group my friends and I had, where we got together every week, sometimes more than once a week, but after college, once a week, every week without fail. And we played lots of different games. We played lots of different role-playing games. We played collectible card games, a lot of them. We played board games. We played card games. We played war games. We all bought armies and stuff. And I get the sense that these days, if you're playing in an RPG, you're often playing with people that are only getting together to play that RPG, as opposed to we are friends and this is one of the things we do and we do other things. So we'll see. I don't know. Hollow Crown. No, I don't really follow that game line. Sorry. Yeah, Sour Cookie, Gub DM. There are people one of the things that there's a lot of people, this is awesome because when the game comes out, people will see it. There are a lot of people playing Draw Steel right now, folks. So you'll see people in these chats and online being like, does Draw Steel do this? As though there's no, but it's like, just go to the Discord and ask. Just ask people in the MCDM Discord and they will tell you they from direct experience. Let's take a look while we're here at, do you folks, is Draw Steel Patreon only? No, if you back it, the patrons are signing up to get the behind the scenes straight dope and be exposed to untested ideas, right? Much, that doesn't really happen anymore. I think we can say now, the game is solidly close to being done. But the patrons wanted to see the sausage being made, and they were signing up to fall in love with the design that we were going to throw out. Our attitude is that's not for the backers. The backers are paying for a polished, finished product. Now, there's a little bit of conflict there because we also use our backers as testers. There's almost 40,000 of them now. So yeah, we if they don't like something, we want to know because we can fix it, as it turns out. But it takes a lot of backers to qualify as do not like it, right? So we tell the backers it worked so well. I can't fucking believe it. Because my experience is almost the opposite usually, is that like I've seen people on YouTube channels be like, I was in the Patreon. No, I'm a backer. I'm not in the Patreon. I got the backer update that has the new rules in it. And the first thing Colville says is this is going to be pretty brutal because this is just a giant text dump. There's no layout. There are no diagrams. There's no art. There's no illustrations. There's no, right? It's just raw text in 2 columns. And he was like, that's not a problem. And then he opened up. He's like, geez, no, you're right. My eyes are bleeding. I'll wait for the PDF. I'm like, that is the way you should do it, right? So only a fraction. So if you want to get the rules early, the Patreon new Patreon packet's going to be going out. I don't know when. I think we just released a new packet to our backers. No, not strike that, to our testers. We just released a new packet to our testers. And then I don't know what happens next, but at the end of December is the backer packet. So you can either pre-order the game, in which case in about 30 days or so, you'll get the most recent up-to-date version of the rules. And I think it's going to be it's the whole game, basically. Or you could be a patron, and you get the same thing. Dundee. I mean, you can get all that old stuff on Drive-Thru RPG or DM's Guild. What element of Draw Steel am I the most proud of? I mean, I'm really. It's impossible to say. I'm every bit I look at it, every time I look at any part of Draw Steel, I remember all of the work we did to get there, and I am proud of that. So we'll see. It depends on some of my pride is going to require knowing what people like and don't like. So there's always the dev team. A good dev team are the most critical people of the game. Like the best teams I worked on right before the game came out, all we were talking about is if we only had 6 more months, we could have fixed this, we could have polished this, we could have. That's a good dev team, right? A bad dev team is one where you're like, we're all geniuses, right? And so it's not until you folks have it and it exists and it's real and in a professional polished form, the PDF, the hardcover, and we see what you folks think that we know. How did we get a double? Did we just get on base? Did we strike out? Did we get a home run? We don't know. And that's going to very strongly affect which bits I'm proud of, so we'll see. Sort of, yeah. Scorinth, actually, yeah. If you had fun, I had fun. Sort of, yeah. So there are things I'm proud of, and as a developer, there are things I'm really proud of the negotiation system. I'm really proud of complications. I'm really proud of the class design. I'm just hugely proud of this team and the work they've done and the spirit and heart that was put into this game. It's all over every page. The people working on it really love what they're doing and they're really proud of it. And we felt like we had all the power to make the game we wanted to make. There was no publisher over us telling us, get it done faster. Can you make your tits bigger? These are real things I've heard at other companies. There was no one telling us to do that. There was no one asking us to make champagne on a beer budget. Nope. We knew how much money we had. We knew how much time we had. We made a schedule and we hired the people we needed to get it done. And it's been an amazing, amazing process. I'm so proud of this team and the work they've done. That's the thing I'm proud of. I'm proud of these people. I'm proud of these people and the work they've done and how hard they've worked and the quality of the work. James was sending out a revised packet on Thanksgiving Day because he saw that the testers were like, hey, is this supposed to be like this? And he went, oh, shit, let me fix that. And I was like, man, take it. The testers can wait. It's Thanksgiving, man. Take a day off. Anyway. What's up, Argentina? I'm also excited for you. Are there plans to release tutorial videos? Well, I will say that, Solid, I will say that if Draw Steel is going to be a success, other people are going to make those videos, right? If people just want to hear Uncle Matt talk, you don't need tutorial videos for that. However, I do think, and I want to do this because I have an idea of how to do it. I think that the way we do what is Draw Steel about, how to play Draw Steel is shorts. I think that's the right way to do it. So let's talk about the Memenek. Here's who the Memenek are. Here's what there's about. And here's what you get if you play one. Ta-da! That's it. That's the whole short. Right? So you can sit there and you can imagine the entire rule book in bite-sized chunks. Okay, here's how negotiation works. You do this, you do that, you do this, blah, 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 ta-da! And it's 3 minutes or less. And so any bit of this rule book, you can just go, oh, there's the thing I want. Click. Cool, I get it. Right? Really, really, really short. What is this about? How does this work? How do you do this? And then that's it. That's the video. Move on. And I would love to do that. It doesn't have to be only me. Everybody on the team could work on that. Well, the thing is, DM Swift says, I'd love to make tutorial videos for Draw Steel. I would love you to do that. But what happens is, because of the way we've done things, when there's a new build of the game that the public gets to see, like the patrons or the backers, all of a sudden there's a flurry of user-created content. But the audience for it is not there yet. There's just not that many people. There's, the audience for D20 Fantasy is a couple million people. The audience for Draw Steel is, we don't know how big it is. We think it's bigger than the number of backers, but we could be wrong. It could be, we're not counting on that for our future projections. Actually, we were counting on, these are the number of backers. If this percentage of them like it, and we charge this much for the next product, the Vasloria stuff, then we get to live to fight another day. But you got to wait to make content for the game until there's a user base for it. Otherwise, you're just going to get frustrated and burned out. You'd be like, I'm making this stuff and no one's listening. It's like, yeah, because a lot of people are still waiting for the PDF, the finished PDF. And then one of the things we've learned is the PDF comes out and we feel like we crossed the finish line because the PDF is the final product. And then it's 6 to 9 months later, the physical book comes out. And a substantive percentage of our audience look at the PDF as kind of like a souvenir. They're like, okay, that's cool. And maybe they open it up and maybe they flip through it, but they don't use it. They wait for the hardcover. So that's, there are these waves of engagement. And the earlier you start making content, the fewer eyeballs will be on that content. So you got to be careful. You got to pace yourself. The flip side is there are people out there like, the guy or guys behind Goblin Points, and really the Dice Society is what I was thinking of, where the Dice Society is doing a podcast every week or something. It's really good, talking about the development of the game, interviewing people in the community. And if that, slowly over time, they're building an audience for their Draw Steel content, which I don't know this person. I have not talked to them. I don't intend to. I'm happy that these people are making stuff on their own without consulting us. That's the point of making everything open. But that also means that they are building an audience for their own future Draw Steel products, which I don't know if they're ever going to make. I don't know if they're designers, but that podcast is going to grow over time, and they'll have their own tiny user base of people who, when they come out with their version of Strongholds and Followers, it might do well. So yeah, it can be done. It can be done. I'm the same way, Alex P. For me, the physical product is like, you can't control F a hardcover. I can't, I don't know why people the thing about the PDF is, I don't know if people know this. I often see people, including some of our own testers, acting like the document, the actual computer document on your monitor is the only version of that you can have at a time. And they get frustrated. I'm like, there's a little button over here that says new window. And you can have the same document open in 2 windows, in Google Docs, Microsoft Word, the PDF. And so I can be on page 27 of Flea Mortals, and I can be on page 212 at the same time, which makes a lot of things a lot easier. Like when you're making a character in Draw Steel, it says you pick 2 skills from the lore skill group. Well, I've got the PDF open in another window, and I've scrolled down to the lore, the skill section, so I don't have to go back and forth between the same book. That's the power of the PDF, folks. There are bookmarks in PDFs. You can do a Control F in a PDF. If something happens to your computer, guess what? It's in the cloud. If you drop your computer in the bathtub, no problem. You haven't accidentally destroyed your PDF. Anyway, excuse me. Oh, wait a minute. Hang on a minute. Stick, get ready. I love you, Mark C, who I don't know and have ever met. Like a memory. Do 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 do. Is there a campaign setting for Draw Steel? Yes, there is. And if you want to read more about it, I just posted 16,000 words. Like my first novel is only like 80,000 words. Like 16,000 words of lore specifically about religion and the gods in the Timescape and Orden, which really, by the way, really is about culture. Because again, I have opinions about what makes good gods. And that's what you get. So yeah, our year one, Draw Steel year one, we think like next August, maybe go to crowdfunding and say, okay, here is the Vasloria box set, or whatever form it's going to take. I think a box set, we'll see. And there's a shitload of adventures, and there could be like 8 adventures in here, and several different gazetteers and all sorts of stuff for running in Vasloria. And then if that does well, then the year after that, maybe the year after that, I don't know, we do Capital, and then after that, we do the Timescape. And we might parallel process some of these, depending on how many, if there's an explosion of interest in this game and 100,000 people are buying it and playing it, then we might be able to staff up and have multiple settings in development at the same time. But each setting splits the audience. You gotta be careful about that. So these are, we got other, by the way, there are other things we want to do besides make RPGs. So we'll see. I love Fortet. I listen to all his stuff. I listen to his DJ sets. Excuse me. Well, Salmon says something interesting. They say they are hyped about Draw Steel. Unfortunately, their friends deflate into disinterest. What a great phrase. When they realize I'm not talking about 5th edition. No, that's not. Relax. We see this all the time. Where there are people in the community who are like, I really like Draw Steel, but my friends, they're really skeptical or whatever. I'm like, that's not how you hook people. Wait for the physical book to be done, and then put it in front of them. That's why we do this stuff, right? And let them open it and look through it. That's how you fall in love with a game. You don't fall in love with a game because somebody tells you how clever it is. I don't think that's why you do it. And here's the thing. I personally believe that everybody wants the same thing, and that is everybody wants to fall in love. That's it. And it's our job to give you an excuse, to give you something to fall in love with. Right? And that's what the physical book is going to do. The PDF will do it for some people, but holding the book in your hand, seeing the layout, seeing the art, reading the text next to the art is going to blow people away. And your friends, that's the acid test, not how interested you are in how clever the design might be or how much it inspires you. What's going to be the test is your players looking at the art and being like, I can be one of these people? Yeah. And then they're like, how does this work? And you're like, oh, that's the power chart. It's the same. Notice that they all have the same number. They all are, 0 to 11, 12 to 16, 17 plus. Same chart every time. You roll 2d10, and they go, oh, well, what if you miss? You're like, you can't miss. What do you mean you can't miss? That's the chart. You can have a bad turn. You can absolutely have a bad turn. Be like, right? Like you'd be surprised at how bad a turn you can have when you can't miss. But yeah, and that'll work. It'll work. It will work. It's possible that they're like, oh, I hate this, but that's fair. I mean, you can't make people fall in love with stuff. Slacker Cat says, yep, I did that with Flea Mortals and it totally worked. Yep. And let them go through it at their own pace. Put it in front of them and let them fuck with it. Be like, don't give them a guided tour, right? Let them fall in love with it on their terms, idiosyncratically, and they'll see things in the books that you hadn't noticed. And they'll be like, oh, look at this fucking thing. The magic items are in the player's handbook. Yeah, because otherwise, how do you know what to quest for? How do you know what's out there? You want to have ambition, don't you? Be like, I can get one of these things. What does this mean? Pure bovine essence. What do you think it means? That's an ingredient. Yeah. Yeah, well, making a Draw Steel character sort of on paper from scratch is a pain in the ass, but no more so than a D&D character. The issue is people don't like when you imagine when you made your first level wizard in D&D, if you felt like you needed to copy out the text of every spell you would think this game sucks, right? Well, we want to make it easier for people to put characters together. And so I believe by the time the game comes out, there will be online character creators. We would like to make some, but people already make their own, and they're quite robust using just the existing packets, which are not the finished game, right? The game's open. You can do whatever you want with it. So people are going to make their own software to make characters, and it'll be really easy. And you'll be able to do it in the VTT and probably be able to export it. And that'll be that. There might be some like website that is basically that chunk of the VTT. I'm drinking water with crystal light in it. I don't have any crystal light. 0 calorie flavor added. And this is blue flavor and caffeine flavor mixed together. Half and half. So I feel like I have failed. It's now 90 minutes into this stream. And one of the things I said we were going to do, like, we haven't talked about we did a little bit about the Elusive Shift video. What did you folks think of that video? There's over 1,000 people here. What did you folks think of that video? People seem to like it. GubDM's like, I've been listening to you talk about the Elusive Shift in basically every stream for a year. I'm like, yeah, fair enough. Yeah, a lot of my IRL friends, they're like, I don't need to watch his videos. I know that guy. I've heard it all before. Was the discourse in the pages, I think is what that phrase. Now that message is gone. Frederick Olson says, it made me realize I severely underestimated old gamers. Yeah, do not take the discourse online now about the 70s at face value. Right? Those people have agendas. They have axes to grind. They want to convince you that their somewhat weird and dysfunctional attitude toward the hobby was the way everybody thought or played at a certain time. No, that is not true. And we can prove it. We can prove it because they wrote down what they thought. They wrote down what they thought, and they thought everything you can imagine. Every opinion you can think of from 2024, they were having in the 70s. They were all of the problems that people have. You know, the people in the 70s were just as smart as we are, and they were basically as broad-minded as we are, I would say. That's one of the things you learn from Different Worlds. Look at this fucking thing. So this is Different Worlds number 3, I think. Yep. This is 1979. Now look at this cover. Like, I love this. I think that's awesome. That's super evocative, right? Is that a sci-fi guy? Is that a fantasy guy? It looks like a little of both, I think. Yeah, so don't let people online convince you that everybody back then thought or felt a certain way. You can prove to them that that is not true. They won't listen because their identity is wrapped up in believing that. But so don't bother, I would say. Jarrett Zetch. I mean, maybe it's a book that's out of print, so I have limited power. What I did was there's a whole bunch of librarians around the planet being like, "Why? What's this thing?" Sure, we'll try to get a copy of that. And I'll tell you folks what I didn't say in the, I'll tell you folks what I didn't say in the video. The point of the Elusive Shift, if you get to the end, it's not obvious while you're reading these stories and they're amazing. And you're like, my God, they thought about this so much and they argued about it, about how the game was intended to be played. What does it mean to play a character? Good question. No one had ever thought about that in the context of gaming before. And their answers were really interesting. But over the course of the book, John Peterson is building an argument. And at the end of the book, he delivers his argument. And you are at that point, you're like, yeah, you're right. I've read all the things they wrote. You're right. There was no original style of play. There was no original style of play. As soon as D&D existed, and in fact, even before that, people were arguing about this stuff and trying to work out, and people were playing it in every way you could imagine. People in 1974 were using the rules of D&D to simulate the adventures they were reading about in fantasy novels. which is the modern narrativist style of play. I'm playing a character. I'm not trying to beat a dungeon. I care about my character's motivation and backstory and personality. I'm not just a bunch of stats on a page. That's 1974. All these people all existed as soon as the hobby existed. Boom, everyone's playing it differently. And you realize, of course they fucking are, because they had to. They had to make their own games out of this framework, because you could not read those rules and figure out how to play. It wasn't possible. You had to make up your own games. So of course everybody made up different games. They all interpreted these things differently. And there's a whole cottage industry out there that sort of is predicated on the idea that there is an original style of play. And I'm like, you like, no, there isn't. And all these arguments people are having online now in 2024, they were having them back then. They were having them in 1979. Person Guy, this is a really good question. Why did it start in the West Coast? So it started in the Midwest, right? You can ask why that should start in the Midwest, but I would say the first major colony of D&D players outside the homeland was Los Angeles. And that's because of the Science Fiction Writers of America. So this is like a union, right? Like a trade. Isn't the Science Fiction Writers of America, isn't their award show the Hugos, or is it the Nebula Award? I don't remember which it was. It's one of those. So there's the Hugos and there's the Nebula. One of them, and chat will explain it. Read chat, folks. One of them is awarded by the an organization called the Science Fiction Writers of America. And for whatever reason, probably going back to like the 1930s, the Science Fiction Writers of America was at the time headquartered and organized from Los Angeles. And they had their own zine. And that zine was called APAL. The Amateur Press Association of Los Angeles. And it was the home of the amateur writings of the Science Fiction Writers of America, right? So all of a sudden, in 1974, they get a flood of articles from their readers about D&D. And whoever was in charge of the SFWA was like, can you guys just get the fuck out of here and go make your own zine? Because we still are interested in writing about science fiction, if that's okay with you guys. And Lee Gold, I don't know, you'd have to ask her. Lee Gold is like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. And starts Alarms and Excursions, which sort of becomes the unofficial home. It would be like, this is the unofficial website of D&D, the fan website of D&D, right? And there were lots of these. Different Worlds is one of them. The Wild Hunt was one of them. Warlock. There were tons of these zines. I don't think they're on fanlore.org. It's interesting that fanlore.org covers all of this science fiction and fantasy fandom through zines specifically and conventions, but not gaming fandom, not gaming zines, and I don't know why. Maybe nobody's updated it. So this is a copy of 1979 Alarms and Excursions, number 44. So in 1979, they had already published 44 of these, right? Probably going back to 1974. I know, David Rosser. I don't know. I don't know Lee Gold at all, and I don't necessarily. I don't know them. I don't know them either in reality or by third hand by watching them on. So there are people I'm like, I would like to interview that person because I have watched interviews with them and I know their work, but I've never seen an interview with Lee before, so I don't know. David Santos, that is a great question, I think, for a Twitch stream. This is us talking about the Elusive Shift now 90 minutes into a video. So what's in here? If you open this up, what do you get? This is before Dungeon. This is before Dungeon and Dragon magazine. And you can see how they would do commentary, right? They would do their own commentary. Look at what's been typed out at the top here. A few words / paragraphs. So you can see this is literally from a typewriter, which I hope there are people in this chat who are like, what the fuck is a typewriter? If you have a contribution to submit, right? This fanzine will cost as follows, right? Here's how to get back issues, right? It will be mailed to you. And this is the editor. That typeface, this typeface, Robin Baggett, hello, typeface. I guess it's literally like, and you can tell, by the way, he did, Jay Tyler, that is correct. And here is a list. What the heck is a typewriter? Well, there's a point at which, do the phone numbers still work? I'm sure some of them do, but I don't know where they go to. So there's something somewhere in here where you can tell whoever did this had a IBM Selectric. Ooh. And I don't know if, look at this fucking thing. Look at this thing. Don't you want to learn about the what? How do you pronounce the Necronomicon? Oh, I bet that's an R. I bet that's an R where the leg didn't print. So it's Necronomicon. Yeah, that's an R. That's an R. And that person obviously just wrote this. This is by, what is the Necronomicon number 2? So you can see how it says Necronomicon number 2. And I don't know if you folks can see this, but this is on this like goldenrod paper, and this is on this light blue paper. So what I learned, I had no idea, by the way. I did not know this. This is not, no, dot matrix printers. Lol. No, they didn't have cell phones either. This is the 70s, man. Ed Symbolist, Bill Seligman. My God. So what this is, I did not know this. I've known about alarms and excursions since the 80s. I just never saw an issue of it. This is a zine. Necronomicon is a zine inside alarms and excursions. So people didn't just write articles. People wrote their own zines and then would like 4 or 5 pages and then send it into Lee Gold, and she would include it. And I don't know if you can see this, but look at the different colors on this. All those different colors are different zines inside of alarms and excursions, which is fucking crazy. What is this? I just opened to a random page. Oh, here, this is Necronomicon number 2. Lysol comes in spray can dispensers. Initially has 1d12 charges. Each charge causes 2d6 damage to any cleanup crew monster. What's that? There is no to hit roll and no saving throw. This is Rob Goldman, 200 Old Army Road in Scarsdale. Here's his phone number. For alarms number 42, hopefully. So he sends this in to and is hoping, he's like, I don't know if they're going to accept it. I don't know if Lee Gold is going to print this. So this is for alarms and excursions number 42, and he writes, hopefully. As part of a continuing policy of saving the best for last, we will begin with comments. So this is a big part of these zines, bro. I sat next to a programmer for many years. It kind of is, can you see how it says like, right here where it says Rob Pear, Mike Gunderloy. It literally took me like an hour or two to figure Steve Levin. In other zines, they will underline the name of the person. And so I thought these were like tweets. Literally, I thought this was like, oh, this is what Steve Levin had to say. Steve Levin says, you failed to describe how the priest Kilman's mental blast. I think that the modern audience, the thing they like about D&D, I don't think it's the rules, folks. I think they want to play the game that has gelatinous cubes in. I think that's the hook. It's the brand, really. That's the hook. And if you like that stuff, you got to read this shit. Just go on eBay and buy some of these. They cost hardly anything, and they show up at your house a couple days later, and they have the craziest shit in them. What the fuck is a Priest Killam? It's not man, unless that's a typo. Priest Killaman's mental blast. The PKMB. So I thought this was this dude having something to say about something, but in point of fact, what this is the author of Necronomicon 2 responding to all these people who had said something in a previous zine, a previous issue of Alarms and Excursions. So it would be like if every time you posted on Twitter, it was like, hey, Gail Simone, here's what I think about that thing you posted. Hey, Matt Koval, here's what I think about that thing you said. Hey, right? That's what they're doing. It's crazy. So these are just Rob Pear, you say undead should come in standard models. Chaos is a disorder which tends toward entropy. Undead do not grow, nor change, nor increase. They are eternally the same. Ultimate chaos. That's a really interesting idea. Good for you, having new and novel ideas about the relationship between primordial chaos and undeath. Well, I agree that undead should be uniform. Perhaps their HD rolls should always be average, but for a different reason. My undead, my elves have normal ears. That's why my game's better. I don't have pointy-eared elves. That's stupid. That's fucking Fantasy Heartbreaker 101. But for a different reason, my undead are lawful evil except for vampires. Entropy is the tendency of things to break down, to fall apart. That is a good answer for a guy writing into the 70s. To age, not to stay the same. It is entropy, statistical mechanics. What's that? It is entropy which causes most change. Also, undead are the ultimate in lawfulness, obeying orders just because they are orders. Hey, that's a good point. Right. These are, I love these original unfiltered debates and the Wild West. The Wild West, a huge new frontier out here in which we can just dump whatever nonsense comes into our head. Sheldon Linker, RE reincarnation. What would I do with a player character rock? What would I do with a player character rock? So apparently this dude, Sheldon Linker, had some kind of reincarnation table in which you could come back as a rock, and that's in the previous issue. And this guy's like, what the fuck are you doing, man? Your AD&D errata is really boring. Is this, so this is 1979. AD&D, I think only the Monster Manual was out at that point, and they're already talking about, right, transitory, right? I mean, yeah, I mean, you know me, come on. Excuse me. AE Brain. More adventures of the Brillo, please. Yeah, this is just somebody. If Twitter was like you can post once a month, this is how people would post. So what else is here in the Necronomicon? More commentary. K. Shapiro. The DM best at running doppelgangers here is without a doubt Howard Mahler. Howard Mahler makes a lot of appearances in the Elusive Shift. Around here, we usually have, and do you notice that they can't do paragraphs? Or they are literally posting. These are literally posts. Oh my God, Insane Beer, you're right. Somebody should make a Blue Sky account or several Blue Sky accounts that just replicates this behavior. You can follow them and they go back and grab these and post them. But can you see what this dude is doing? Because he literally does not want to do character turns. Read the K. Shapiro, the DM best at running doppelgangers is without a doubt Howard Mahler. New paragraph. And I was like, oh, look at that. Yeah, because lines are a commodity in this. Alex P, no, there's a lot of shit posting here. You read the Elusive Shift and there's a fucking, there's a dude who writes in to one of these zines talking about how much he and his friends love playing D&D because they had a great session last night. We tortured a bunch of innocent hobbits, and we got into all this detail about using these terrifying implements to keep them alive and screaming while and he's like, no other game gives us this satisfaction. You're like, and I think John Pearson said whatever game that dude thought he was playing, other people reading it were like, what state do you live in, and how do I make sure that I'm not in that state? Here's a response to Lee Gold. I don't know what Lee had written. Lee Gold, how about this? Every month a character owns an intelligent sword or other intelligent magic items. He or she or they has an ego % chance. I remember ego, which is calculated from like it's your level divided by something plus your int divided by 2 plus your charisma and wisdom divided by 2 plus your level or something like that is how you calculated your intelligent weapons ego. They have an ego % chance of going schizo, as you put it, and incorporating facets of the item's personality in his her own. That was, by the way, that was what was going to happen and might yet still happen. I just had lunch with Tom Schmuck last week. That was what was going to happen to Boots with the rod of Count Rodar von Glauer. I was running a solo session for him and we recorded the first half of it and then everything went crazy and we never finished it. So I'd like to go back to it. It's up to him. And he was having a solo adventure, downtime, while the heist was happening. And the plot of that adventure, spoilers, although if it never happens, then it's a good thing I talked about this. The plot of that adventure was because he had the rod of Count Rodar von Glauer, not the Count of Rod von Glauer. That's not English. He had the rod of Count Rodar von Glauer. He kept it. One day, going back from the opera house to the tavern that the Chain of Acheron was staying in, he would absent-mindedly and if I did a good job of describing it, Tom Schmuck would slowly realize what was happening. And he was walking through the city on autopilot, and he arrives at this mansion that's just like a really expensive house it's like a brownstone. It's like a 2-up brownstone, right? It's one of those like Doctor Strange mansions, right in the middle of a big city. So it's not a manor house in the middle of no, it's in the middle of the city, and there's a gate, and the gate opens for him on its own, and he walks up the steps, and he knocks on the door, and like an undead butler opens and says, "My lord, we've been expecting you." And it's the personality of von Glauer asserting itself, right? And that there was going to be a moment where Tom Schmuck, the player, gets to choose. Do I want to let von Glauer take over? Not what is Boots? Not Boots doesn't get to choose. Boots is going to be a victim of this one way or the other. Tom Schmuck gets to decide. does Boots get taken over by Count von Glauer? Like that. And that, I guess that would be me going back to the nails well, but that was a lot of fun. And this is a very different scenario, right? And I'm like, how fucking cool would that be? Anyway. Rod von Glauer, Rod, like the Welsh Rod. Here he is talking to Bill Seligman. Bill Seligman is quoted all over the place in the Elusive Shift. I'm not sure I agree with your intention not to read any FRP rules so they won't contaminate yours. I respect that, It's noble, but it's also like studying nuclear physics without reading Scientific American. It's very telling that he has no capacity to relate to the creative process other than talking about physics, right? But if you're going to set out to create something and you want it to be yours and you want it to be authentic, then absolutely you take everything you've learned and experienced up until then, all the games you've read and played, but once you set out to do it, it's time for you to think, what did all that stuff make you think? Put that in your product. And at that point, yeah, I totally respect having your blinkers on and being like, I don't want to rip something off from somebody else. I want it to be my work. Anyway, what else is in the Necronomicon? That's it. That's the whole fucking thing. It's literally, this guy's zine is 4 pages of him just responding to other people and building a reputation as a thinker in this space. And I think that's what would make successful writers is they would send these things into alarms and excursions. Lee would publish them. And then how many people, it's you know what this is just like, by the way? I think you might be able to guess what I'm about to say. Oh, because the P is an R in Greek? That's interesting. Forums, Reddit, you guys are close. Think more robustly. Blogs, the thing I'm thinking of is sort of a version of these. What were we talking about? What YouTuber were we talking about on Twitch last night? Don't think internet, folks. Don't think internet and don't think technology. What does this remind me of? People are posting in, and then the successful ones get a lot of the successful people, the successful writers in these zines are the ones who get a lot of. But what's another name for that, Blue DM? I don't know why I'm torturing you people. I don't mean to. Come on. Citations. You get citations. It's like a scientific paper. It's like a scientific magazine. Right? Successful. What makes a successful paper? It gets citations. When you talk, like, listen to Dr. Collier talk, listen to Dr. Hassenfelder talk, and they say, you've published a shitload of papers. No one has cited any of them. That's it. Right? Same thing. The people that write into here have original thoughts. They respond to other people. And if the quality of their thought is really good, the other people reading this include responses to them in their zines. And the most interesting, not necessarily like the wisest, but the most interesting and well-written and the more controversial ones are going to rise to the top. I think that's fascinating. The Annals of Anandriel. The Annals of Anandriel. And you can see, by the way, like, look at how the Necronomicon is one typeface, and this one is a slightly different one. The Annals of Anandriel. This is what I mean about how most of these people were not professional writers. They were, by and large, they were outsider artists. They were just taking whatever crazy fucking ideas they had, and it was the Wild West. Not we've been doing this for 50 years and it's just going through different permutations. No one had ever done anything like this before. It's amazing. Excuse me. Compiled by, much better than written by, compiled by Carl Stevens, still in the old world and able to be contacted by via somebody in New York. Happy New Year to one and all. It's been relatively active in this area recently. I have been able to participate in an adventure about once every 3 weeks. Yes, a group has been located. Do people know who this guy is? This is number 5. So there's 5 other issues of Alarms and Excursions that have this dude's. And one of the things that I noticed was you'd read this guy's zine in Alarms and Excursion number N, but he would say, if you want to find the previous one, you got to go to different worlds. You know, so they would submit their zine to other zines. And if it didn't get picked up by this one, it would get picked up by that one. Crazy. Anandriel campaign update. Everyone was involved. Excuse me, hang on a minute. I'm rewinding a little bit. Everyone was involved in as straight a D&D as I've heard of. But as of now, RuneQuest has fired the imaginations of the DMs. So, by the way, this is the beginning. 1979 is sort of the beginning of people calling it the Dungeon Master. And there are many people in here that still use terms like referee and umpire and judge. And a mass conversion is taking place. I introduced the game system through Anandriel. So a lot has been happening in my little corner of the multiverse. My little corner of the multiverse. They all sort of assumed that all of their worlds were accessible through planar gate and stuff like that. And that's the kind of multiverse that I like. Yes, the first adventurers have ventured forth from Pendorf, home of the White Horse Legion. I'm already in 100%, 100%, H-U-N-N-E-R-T, 100%. Pendorf is located on the eastern shore of a peninsula, which is about 180 kilometers from east to west. Who needs a map? This is great. This is A+. This is what the people want. Give them what they want. They want just a fire hose of meaningless bullshit lore right in the face, and they will just say more as the hose and the pressure of the water rips their skin off. They'll be like, more lore. I want to know, like, do they have buttons on their shirts, or is it a hook and loop fastener? The town is a fortress which, like the entire peninsula, serves as a buffer to protect the more civilized areas of the south from the primitive terrors of the northern wilderlands. Other communities ranging in population from 120 to 350 souls dot the area. Linton, Lastholm, Stockwood, and Blissdown are predominantly human, while Honor Place is a dwarven bastion. I want to find this person in 1979 and give them a big hug and just say, I appreciate you. I appreciate you. From such stuff are great campaigns made. Character report, Annals of Anandriel number 5, character report. Another first. I don't believe that RuneQuest-based characters have been presented previously. So this is this person writing up their RuneQuest character. Isn't this cool? I mean, am I losing viewers? No, it's about right. About staying. Isn't this amazing? Isn't this amazing? It's just the raw shit, bro. It's so raw. It's so crazy and over the top and fun. I feel like if somebody came down and said, you get to live 500 years and here I can prove it to you, I would be happy as a pig in shit to just spend a year doing nothing but reading these zines. They're so much fun. It's, you know what it reminds me of? These zines remind me of Rob Liefeld's art, right? It's just pure enthusiasm on the page. And then people who are incredibly poor sports and who don't really understand the purpose of art will pick apart, well, he doesn't know anatomy that well. I'm like, who gives a shit? What the fuck? What kind of comment is that he doesn't know anatomy? No one, have you ever seen a human being that looks like Charlie Brown from Peanuts? That kid would need to go to the hospital, right? That is not human proportions, right? But no one gives Charles Schultz crap, right? It's just there's a reason that dude was such a successful comic book artist. It's because of his unbridled and obvious enthusiasm for superheroes. There's an interview with him. He's like, I just wanted to see the X-Men fight Magneto, man, right? And it's like, yeah, I can tell. Yeah, your art gives me a headache, but that's not the point, right? That's this. It's just people are so crazy in love with this that they are just being fueled by pure enthusiasm. Game design is not a discipline that has years of design and traditions behind it. Nope, you just make it all. You just make it all up, and who gives a shit? So this is somebody's RuneQuest character apparently. Ardra, played by my wife Patty. I assume it's a P and not. Ardra is a female peasant from the foothills. I apologize. It's not my eyesight, although, my doctor says my eyesight is normal for somebody my age. It's the fact that a lot of this text, like, look here, right? A lot of this text, it reproduces very thinly, and there'll be like half a letter is missing. And so, like, is that an F or is that a P? Excuse me. 100%, Matt Crow. 100%. I always feel like I've learned something about somebody, and not a good thing, when they give Rob Liefeld shit for how he draws or doesn't draw well. I'm like, what does that have to do with anything? Are you kidding me? Do you know how many artists I love that, like Kate Beaton, and you're like, would her art and work be improved if she drew it the Marvel way and everything was in proportion and stuff? Who cares? That Rob Liefeld was a huge smash hit artist because the fans loved his shit because he was one of them. A female peasant from the foothills outside of Strelzandia. I guess that's a place in Gloriantha. I really don't know anything about Gloriantha. With strength 17. This is a RuneQuest character? I did not know RuneQuest was a D&D clone. I think I have a copy of RuneQuest somewhere. I have a copy of Dragon Quest that Jim got me a million years ago. And he's like, I don't want to see that on eBay. And I'm like, how dare you? Con 18, so strength 17, con 18, size, S-I-Z. What else could S-I-Z stand for if not size? Seizure? 14 seizure? Int 14, POW 10, Dex 16, Charisma 16, Ego 8, Wiz 8. Classic 70s, early 80s RPG where they're just like, it doesn't occur to them to do it differently the way D&D did it. They just do it with different stats or more stats, right? Our game has 15 stats. Oh wow, that's way better than D&D, right? I mean, don't get me wrong, our game has stats. Also, don't tell anybody, but I have to poo. I have to poo. If you wonder what it's like working in MCDM, folks, it's being in your office and all of a sudden hear Matt go, I have to poo. And personal appearance 18. Hubba hubba. Stats for personal appearance always grossed me out. I was like, what is going on? I was 50 and I'm like, what are you doing? During her first adventure in the Burial Mound, capital B, capital M, she fared well with her short sword and picked up a ring of undead control. D&D, everybody. She has since acquired quite a reputation with that short sword of hers. By the way, we got to read some of Arduin. Because the personality of the author is in there and it's so much fun. It's so good. Excuse me. Yeah, it shows she's fared quite well with her short sword and picked up a ring of undead control. She has since acquired quite a reputation with that short sword of hers. Parentheses, in an encounter with a large raiding party of gnomes. I can see GNO and then a couple more letters I can't make out. She connected with and killed Oi HT 8 8 opponents outright in 8 melee rounds! Exclamation point. She picked up a healing crystal. God, this is so hard to read. 6 points. In a cavern of orcs and ogres, but it clutched like a klutz. I've never seen klutz turned into a verb. Klutzed on its first use with a roll of 99 and lost all magical value as a result. One method I use to control magic accumulation over the long term is to rule, not mule, looks like an M, actually an R, rule that a roll of 96 to 100 on a D100 klutzes the item. This is like, why does it cost so much money to fly around and to get on a Griffin in World of Warcraft? Because we have to drain money from the system, otherwise there's no economy. And that's what this person is figuring out. But he's like, I have to drain items. By the way, did you hear what he just said? He's like, in order to kind of manage the magic item economy and keep it under control, I have a rule. There's always a 4% chance any item you find that you attempt to use it, you screw up and drop it and it breaks. Right? What was our version of that? We had exactly the same problem. Was, the official D&D adventures were the most Monty Hall adventures you've ever fucking seen. I couldn't believe that people would criticize Dungeon Masters for giving away too many magic items. Have you played the actual official adventures? There's so much treasure in those things. Are you kidding? And so what our director, my friend Brad, would do is we fought a lot of dragons, man. We fought a lot of dragons. Anytime our character sheets got too long with magic items, we knew a dragon was coming. Breathe on us, and every item has to make a save. Your potion explodes. I think the next video you guys are going to get from me is going to be a net hack. It's going to be a net hack video. Because, don't tell anybody, because this hasn't happened yet. It might not happen. There might be technological or even financial reasons why it wouldn't happen. But I think Jerry is going to set up an MCDM public net hack server. So you will be able to play NetHack on our server, and you will be able to find the bones of other players in the community, fight their ghost, and get their items after they die. Wouldn't that be interesting? If you don't know what NetHack is, yes you do. Yes you do. Kit Sam, what do you mean what is NetHack? We're talking about it. We're talking about it. The potion miscibility table is my all-time favorite chart. All-time favorite chart in any, was it Don Mappin or was it Ross Isaacs? The Technobabble, the original Technobabble chart in that first Star Trek Next Gen RPG, which I worked on, but I didn't work on the design. I did the art direction and stuff like that. Art management. I did the art management on it. Art direction. Lol. That original Technobabble chart in the Star Trek RPG, super good. But the potion miscibility table is close to my heart. So yeah, this is somebody talking about their RuneQuest character, and it sounds exactly the same as Dungeons and Dragons. It sounds exactly the same. Anyway, I feel like I could spend hours going over this. Hey, what's up? It's Nick. It's Future Ghost. You guys want to see something cool? Like Baldur's Gate 3? No. Like Diablo. If you've ever heard of a game called Diablo quite literally, or maybe I should say more literally than you would guess, as though literarily-ness is an analog value. Much more literally than you would guess, Diablo is a NetHack visualizer. You want to know what the Gilded Hole style of play was about? www.nethack.com. Here is my thing, and I go into this, and where is something fun from our friend Nicholas? That's cool. That's super cool. I've already shown this off. I've shown this off, but not all y'all have seen this. This is a official Nick Demon TM. So I go to here and I go to there and I switch this to that. Yeah, that'll do. This is a draw steel original demon. This is called the Egress Demon. Look at that! Look at that thing! Look at that thing! Can we zoom in on this? Yeah, look at that thing. It's covered in eyeballs and these are the souls inside. I like the effect Nick came up with for souls. It's super good. Yeah, look at that. I love this. Nerd. It's coming right at me. Anyway. Nick Despain, everybody. Let's see. I do want to go over some of... so this is super cool. What the hell is this? The Claudian invasion of 43 AD rapidly overrun. Why is this person talking about the Emperor Claudius's attempts to reinforce their northern flank? Return of the Pork Pie, an APA zine, an apazine, an Amateur Press Association zine, from Hartley Peterson of the UK. The above is one reason why my fanzine News from Bree hasn't appeared lately. Don't panic, subscribers. It will be back once I've settled in. What's happening here? The FRP boom shows no signs of abating, at least in the time I visited Games Workshop. Agents for TSR, FGU, Fantasy Games Unlimited, and almost everyone else, they had run out of storage space again and were looking for more warehouse. It's so crazy reading this 1979 and thinking about when we were wizards and what was going on at TSR in 1979. I'm just, looking at these different zines and trying to find, hang on a minute. The Times of Rondon. Shire Press publication number 217. We played CNS, Chivalry and Sorcery, once a month, usually on the second or third Sunday. General comments, Mark Shalenskas. Dude, this person's quoted in the Elusive Shift. Please don't drop out. You're one of the best writers in Alarms and Excursions. He must have been pissed about something and said, he's gonna take his ball and go home. Your descriptions of the cults in your RuneQuest campaign are interesting and easy to read. Unlike most amateur writing, I don't have to back up and reread a paragraph to figure out what you said. You make RuneQuest so interesting that if I didn't have a large time investment in a Chivalry and Sorcery campaign, I would switch to RuneQuest. I especially enjoyed your write-up of Oakfed and his cult. You noted my objections to increasing characteristics in RuneQuest, the Great Dragon Gygax controversy. What's this? I had 3 paragraphs on this, but Hartley Patterson said most of it better in this alarms and excursions. There have been a lot of comments like, quote, I think TSR's X rules are crocked because A, they make for slower advancement than I like, or B, they are irregular, end quote. It wouldn't hurt to say something like, I am a perfectionist and I like neat tables with a clear, simple rationale. X table/rule doesn't meet my neatness standards, so I propose the following instead. Again, isn't it amazing? I just picked a random comment from a random zine inside this zine, and they're wrestling with the fact that the discussion in these zines is predicated on different styles of play. They're all playing differently, but there is no context for these different styles of play. And this person is trying to say, what you should say is, I prefer stuff that works like this, and that is why I don't like this other thing, as opposed to, this is bad. But what people are saying is, this is bad, this thing they did. And it's like, no, I think it's great because I play differently than you. And that's one of the reasons when you read The Elusive Shift, you discover that there's no institutional memory in the hobby. You left out the fire elemental altogether. I'm just reading a random page on the previous zine. So much of this is just, we're looking for a few. Oh, Greg Kostikian. Oh, Greg Kostikian. Greg Kostikian was a legend when I was coming up, a legendary game designer. Worked for SPI, as I recall. We're looking for a few, and look, see, like he's got a different font. Look at the yellow page. He's got a different ball in his Selectric than this person's probably working on a regular everyday typewriter, but he's got a fancy typewriter. He can change the little ball, and each little ball has Greg Kostikian. I mean, how many Greg Kostikians are there? 1979. You folks ready? What should high fantasy do? It should emphasize thought problems, character development, and world interaction at the expense of hack and slash role-playing. When I was coming up in the hobby, this was still a major discussion happening in various magazines, and Usenet, once I was on Usenet, was hack and slash role-playing versus. And that hack and slash ended up being a term that people like in the 80s, I remember, used when the people in the 70s would have said the gilded hole, right? It should encourage playing in character by providing the neo referee, neo referee, meaning the neophyte referee, the new referee with rules systems for extensive interpersonal interact. Good luck with that. I mean, Draw Steel has that, but yeah. You need a high fan. So yeah, this is back. So this is in 1979. The term role-playing game was not yet universally adopted. And they were struggling with what kind of game is this? And a lot of people called it FRP, fantasy role-playing. A lot of people just called it the fantasy game. And they didn't mean D&D. They meant all of these rule sets that we are coming up with that include everything people are doing with D&D and RuneQuest, that whole thing. It's all one. Like, listen to that RuneQuest character play-by-play. Sounds exactly like AD&D. But for the people in 1979, it was an enormous fucking difference. It was a huge, huge game-changing difference. The difference between RuneQuest and D&D, even though to us, it looks almost exactly the same, right? And that's what when he says, what should high fantasy do? That's Greg Kostikian's term for what is this hobby that we're in? It's the high fantasy hobby. That's what I think he was saying. And he's not saying, I don't think this article is about how here's a style of play. I think what he's trying to say is that hack and slash style of play is old and obsolete, or should not be competing with it. We'll find out. Let's keep reading. It should demand the development of a complete and rational world. Oh my fucking God. From astronomical, geophysical, and meteorological basics. Really? So what do you have to do to be a good dungeon master? You have to have a degree in geophysics. You have to have a degree in, what else was it? Oh, astronomy, because it has to be complete and rational, right? It can't just be some shit you made up. That's not good. Yep. You have to, that's not a lot of people are going to qualify for that, Greg, I'm afraid. And not a lot of players are going to give a fuck. What they're going to want is it could be fun. Self-consistent, sure. Yeah. But I worked, I can't believe this. But 40 years after this, I was working on a video game and I was the lead writer. And I was writing a lot of stuff and sending it to the team that wasn't going to go in the game, but it was me using It was me using stories, a little microfiction, to tell the rest of the team about the game world and about the characters, stuff that they wouldn't learn otherwise just playing the game. And one of the artists came up to me, based apparently on some quality of my writing, came up to me and said, hey, could you do me a favor and could you figure out the orbital mechanics of the planet that we're on so that I can do the phases of the sun and moon and make it accurate to the world? And I was like, Kurt, I'm a writer. And he was like, huh? Yeah. So something in what I had written convinced him that I could do Keplerian mechanics just in my head in the amount of time I had. And I was like, I'm a writer. So I'm happy that my writing has impressed you with its sci-fi veracity. That makes me happy, but I'm not actually an astronomer. I'm not actually an astrophysicist. I'm not actually a cosmologist. I'm not that guy. So sorry, you're an artist. Can't you just make it up? That's what I'm doing. I made all this shit up. There's not really a thing called borium that you get at this. There's not the island of stability doesn't work that way. It is a real thing. But that's not how it actually works. I did the sci-fi version of it. But he thought he had been convinced that I actually had done all the work and that I knew that this is how subatomic physics works. And so all of our faster than light nonsense was predicated in reality. I'm like, no, it's just I made it up. And when I told him, I said I could just go make something up. He's like, well, I could do that. I'm like, you're an artist. Anyway, this is. Yeah, I feel like Greg Kostikian could have been on that team and been like, Matt, could you do me a favor? I need to understand the geophysical underpinnings of this. I want to understand how the plate tectonics of this world works. I'm like, oh, do you? That's interesting. Anyway, I got a game to finish if you don't mind. It should simulate the feel. Maybe he's being funny. Maybe he's taking the piss. Maybe he's saying it's impossible. Maybe his point is it's impossible to make this. Maybe I don't know. I haven't read the whole thing. So the thing I'm making fun of, Greg Kostick might be like, bro, that was the point, is that you can't make the perfect setting. You can't make the perfect world. It should not limit the referee to any specific civilization structures as chivalry and sorcery does, but instead permit and encourage the referee to develop any conceivable civilization with basic rules for doing so. What an incredibly proscriptive kind of like, that's how it is in the dictionary, therefore that's the way it should be. I'm like, it's the other way around. That's how it is, so that's what we put in the dictionary. And when how it is changes, then the dictionary changes, right? But like, yeah, chivalry and sorcery, really popular. It should allow powerful characters to make their mark on the world, becoming no longer simple adventurers, but lords, businessmen, important magicians, mercenary leaders, any occupation or endeavor a character wishes to pursue. Its magic system should encourage specialization and it sounds like I have dentures and I do not. Its magic system should encourage specialization and diversity. Its religious system, that's not what he wrote. What he wrote was its religious system should be strategery, should be diverse, allowing a religious, again, that's not how that word works, to pursue any belief system held by any religious. I'm not making this up. That's really how he writes it. Religious group described in the game or developed by the game master. It should encourage development of new rule systems, alterations in old rules. Just going to keep reading. It should provide extensive essays on the gentle art of GMing. It should quicken the pace of play. It cures baldness. It should be presented in a clear and readable manner. It should include new concepts where possible. It should include computer support whenever possible. The above is the statement of aims, the general philosophy of the High Fantasy Design Group. The goal is the development of a true second-generation role-playing game. I think he talks about this in the Elusive Shift. Clear, complete in every detail, an air war of role-playing gaming. Air wars in quotes, I assume, and capital letters, so I assume that's the title of a famous game, probably from SPI. What's up? Definitely not Annie. Thank you for your amazing videos. Oh, that's awesome, Daniel L7. What are we talking about? It promotes democracy, cures baldness. Greg Kostikian, designer of Swords and Sorceries, the creature that ate Sheboygan, Vector 3. Actually, yeah, Vector 3. I bet Vector 3 is a physics-based. It's like Actually, do I own Vector 3? Is that, I think I do. I think I own this. I think it's at home because it was published by SPI, and it's part of their, it was part of a larger, it was included in a larger box set that was like Vector 3 and 2 other games. And it's like Full Thrust. It's a vector-based starship combat game, right? It's like playing Star Citizen with real heli flight turned on. Developer of Conquistador, the plot to assassinate Hitler. He developed that? He seems a little young to have developed a plot to assassinate Hitler. Air War. Oh, he developed Air War. So that's why he thinks, yeah. Battlefleet Mars, Drive on Stalingrad, and Commando. Co-publisher of an FRP fanzine, Phoenix, and a New York FRP and Traveler game master. Stephen Tihor, New York's premier FRP game master, the founder of a now defunct FRP fanzine, The Haven Herald. Ben Grossman, Eric Goldberg, John Carter of Mars. Oh, here we go. It keeps going. Among its members, the High Fantasy Design Group has 31 years of experience with fantasy role-playing games. So 74 to 79 is 5. So how many people is that, right? 3 of its members are professionally published game designers, and all have been in the forefront of the development of FRP gaming on the East Coast. The design group is currently negotiating with SPI and GDW over the possibility of production of high fantasy by either group. Negotiations with SPI are stalled at the moment. A big part of When We Were Wizards, the podcast, is listening to letters from Gary, memos from Gary, and articles talking about we've made this deal with we've been talking to several Hollywood publishers or Hollywood movie studios, and a Dungeons and Dragons movie I am here to tell you is imminent. It will be of the highest quality, and it will be blah blah blah. It's all the stuff people in my Twitch streams want me to say. Hey Matt, are you guys gonna? I'm like, I don't fucking know. We're just trying to get Draw Steel out there. I have no idea what the future holds. But Gary was doing the opposite. He was trying to imagine the future, and he seemed to think if he wrote it down in the right language, that meant it was going to happen. I'm like, I don't think that's how this universe works. Whatever the case, high fantasy will be developed. Was it ever developed, I wonder? First draft rules for most rule systems will be compiled by the middle of June. The final game will run between 400,000 and 600,000 words. How long is Draw Steel? How long is Draw Steel? Just the Heroes book, not the Monsters book. I almost shat myself because it was telling me the number of characters instead of words. I'm like, that's a lot of characters. I thought it was a lot of words. Stand by, it's counting, it's thinking. Oh, it does not like it. SharePoint is a little persnickety. Yeah, right, Blazer Trail's trying to impress people with how long this is going to be. How did they start these magazines, Happy Chap 100? They would go to game stores and there would be copies of them sitting around, and they would be like, that game stores were one of the ways, like my friend, I assume they did it the way my friend Mark did with his zine that he published in the 80s as a alt-rock nerd. We were like 13, 14, 15. He would just drive around to the local music stores and drop off copies of his thing. Would say, if you want to subscribe, send this, that, and the other thing in here. And then once you were in the zine ecology, all these zines, like the first thing on the inside here, no, not that. Sorry, the second thing. This is a list. This page is a list of other zines you can subscribe to. The Apprentice, an offset fanzine. Different Worlds. He says soon to come out. So Different Worlds, which we're going to look at. The Dragon. The Fangirl. He talks about it. This is a prozine. This is a fanzine. This is a semi-pro zine. The Lords of Chaos. Morning Star. Right? These are all Troll Crusher. And Legal would say this comes out every month. They say it comes out every month. We'll see, that kind of stuff. So all the zines would promote other zines. And once you were in that network, because either a friend of yours had one of these or you found one in a game store, then now you were in and you could order all these different zines and stuff like that. Spooky, scary. Yeah, I do, but I don't know how to link it to you right off the bat. We've now been streaming for 2 hours and 20 minutes, and we've only spent a little bit of time talking about this. Here's Different Worlds. This is a much glossier professional product from the same year. So, which Black Company book is my favorite? Probably the second one. Hard to choose sometimes. So this is, you saw what Alarms and Excursions looked like on the inside, right? This is what Different Worlds looks like. This looks like every issue of Dragon magazine from the 80s, right? Black and white interior, ads, an ad for Gen Con 12 with obviously Elric, right? And what do they have to say about this? Dealers, seminars, board games, giant dungeon, D&D tournaments. I have played in several D&D tournaments, and my friends and I won several times. Everything you ever wanted in a game convention and more. Each conventioneer will receive a book of coupons worth $10 redeemable with any dealer. Dealer dollars. I can't tell you how many products I got off the back of dealer dollars. Flying Buffalo. Rick Loomis. I remember that guy. I have met Rick Loomis, and I was on a mailing list with him among other people. And you could order all this stuff. Starweb. What the hell is Starweb? Starweb is a multiplayer hidden movement play-by-mail strategic space game. Capture planets, build space fleet. I would like to play this. Can I sign up now? What does a D&D tournament even entail? I'm so glad you asked that. I have to pee. Did I mention that? I have to pee. I used to have to poo, and now I have to poo and I have to pee. But I'm willing to suffer for my art. Played by mail. That's funny. What is a D&D tournament if you can tell? Well, it's actually relatively straightforward to find out. Go download and look at Lost Cavern of Sojkanth, or one of those early D&D modules. Like almost every D&D module before Against the Cult of the Reptile God began its life as a tournament module. So what you have is you have different groups of players, sometimes random people, sometimes a crew that showed up, and they sign up for the tournament, and the dungeon masters are all given the same adventure, and that adventure can be scored. And you score it based on things like every potion the team doesn't use, they get this many points. Right? Because they played so well, they didn't have to dip into their reusables, right? Did the players talk to this bard? Did the players avoid combat? And you get points, right? And at the end, they tally up the points. And I think a lot of the people in the LA conventions, my friends and I went to, a lot of the people there were it was pickup groups. But my friends and I were an established gaming group, and we knocked these things out of the park. We crushed these conventions. We won several of them. Are you serious? Fade to Black? That's incredible. That's also, I got to go to GaryCon one of these days. So this is 1979. 5 for summer blank. Blank what? The Cults of Prax. The long-awaited guide to the basis of RuneQuest magic. Oh, it's a RuneQuest. Reich. A fast-moving and fascinating board game for 1 to 4 players, acting as princes of German states and attempting to unify Germany. Interesting name you have chosen for your Raiders and Traders. The crisis and grandeur of Bronze Age Greece. Foes. First order enemy stats. I love a good backronym. Is an encyclopedia of pre-rolled RuneQuest characters. Those were really popular in the 70s and 80s. Pre-made NPCs, products of pre-made NPCs. Snake Pipe Hollow. Explore the wilderness of Dragon Pass in a new set of RuneQuest. It's all RuneQuest. It's all RuneQuest. Printed by the Chaosium, because he lived near the Colosseum, the LA Coliseum, and he liked the Chaos Coliseum Chaosium. Let's learn a little bit more about Starweb. I love this. I fucking love this. Oh, I unironically love it. This isn't me being like, oh, how quaint the people in the passport. No. 100%. Starweb is a multiplayer hidden movement play-by-mail strategic space game. Capture planets, build space fleets, collect ancient artifacts. The first game I ever designed from scratch was basically this. And my friends put up with this. I was in college, and it was hex-based, and you designed your own civilization. You designed your own spaceships and spent points on them, and then went out. It was a very 4X game. Attempt to build a space empire. There are 225 star systems in the game. That's how you got people to give you their money. Ours has 500 star systems. Oh no, people are gonna buy that game. We need to come up with one that has 550. 225 star systems in the game, and you start with knowledge of only one. You don't even know how many other players are in the game until you meet them. Stop, I can only get so hard. Once every 3 weeks, you mail your instructions for the turn to us. We run the turns through our computer. It's basically a giant game of diplomacy, 4X diplomacy, and mail you a print. Like, coming up in the hobby, Play-by-mail was a huge industry, and Flying Buffalo sort of cornered the market on it. Because, again, this is the reason MCDM is making a VTT. A lot of people are like, why are you doing that? It's a crazy thing to try to do. And I'm like, I don't think we see eye to eye on this issue. My conviction is that there have always been and always will be more people that want to play role-playing games than who know people to play with, right? Play-by-mail is the solution to that for the 70s and 80s, right? A VTT is the modern solution for it. Star Web 7th edition. Let's all play Star Web, everybody. Let's see if we can get... Yeah, Hunter, wait. It's Stellaris by mail. Isn't this fascinating? How can you not be fascinated by this? Complete strategist. Bushido, a review. Bushido is a fantasy RPG recreating the legendary world of medieval Japan. I just want to point out that medieval Japan is a real place in the real world, and its medieval period is a historical fact. They're not myths. Written by Paul Hume and Bob Charette. It consists of 2 8.5 by 5.5 saddle staple-bound booklets. Doo-doo-doo-doo. Packaged in a Ziploc bag. Book 1, entitled Heroes of Nippon, is 72 pages long and includes the character generation combat. I bet it's got ninjas. I remember Bushido. Bushido is still well known. My Life and Role-Playing. Look what I found, everybody. This is episode number 3, written by Dave Arneson. Nicholas Nunes, welcome. Thank you for joining us. I realize look at this art. Look at this art. I love this stuff. I love this era of this is the kind of art that I grew up with. And I hope if we get to do Crows, I hope it has this. Well, here he is, the man who started it all. A lot of propaganda between Gary and Dave when it came to this stuff. Since he needs no introduction, read on. Blackmore. Once upon a time, in a deep, dark basement in the Midwest. I got to do my Dave Arneson voice. Once upon a time, in a deep, dark basement in the Midwest, a small group of wargamers assembled to fight out. I don't know what it is. I mentioned this on stream the other night, listening to When We Were Wizards. They have actors doing Gary and Dave, but there's a lot of guys from the 70s that were there at the beginning who are still kicking around. And you get to hear them. They're in their probably 70s now, but you get to hear them. And they all, it's crazy how similarly they all talk. They all talk like Jamie Heineman. And they all take a long time to get their words out. And there is very little inflection or personality in their speech. It is as though talking for them takes enormous effort. And one of the exceptions is Dave Wesley, who just talks like a normal guy. And then all of a sudden, the 80s happens. And there's a whole new influx of developers at TSR who didn't invent D&D. They came up as a result of D&D. And they all sound like me. Their voices have inflection. And I'm like, my God, what happened? All of a sudden it goes from black and white to Technicolor, and it's just the tone of their voice. It's so funny. Anyway, Blackmore was not the first RPG game that I was in, not by a long shot. Some years previously, I'd been involved in a Napoleonic battle in the town of Braunstein. Or Brownstein is how we probably... Yeah, because that's Dave Wesley. Anyway, so here's Steve Perrin, the guy who does... is Pendragon? What does Steve Perrin do? My Life is Role-Playing. How many of you out there imagine growing up with a large circle... How many of you out there grew up with a large circle of imaginary playmates? I don't think I had imaginary friends when I was a kid. I remember when I was a kid, Mr. Snuffleupagus was an imaginary creature. Now, of course, I'm Stefan de Lorraine, a knight and count in the Society for Creative Anachronisms. Oh, of course you are. Specialty mage. Wait. Research and rules. What does Steve Marsh have to say? The temptation to write rules is one of the sweetest in the world. Giving into it can be delightful. Giving into it can also... Cump? Is that a word? You can't just make up words, dude. No one's gonna know what the hell you're talking about. Giving into it can be delightful. Giving into it can also cump a very messy pile of crap. Oh, I think he means dump. Can cump a pile of crap, a very messy pile of crap on your head. The first level of research is encountering. What? Example, a person sees Kobudo nunchucks in action and think, hey, that would be, so this is an article in which somebody is trying to teach you how and why you should be inventing rules for RPGs. And be inspired by something from the real world. Step 1, define the thing to be written about. Step 2, define the use case. He writes the user/situation. These days we would say the use case. Get acquainted with the material. Simulate the rules in your present framework. Of course, this is somebody who innately believes in the virtue of simulationism, right? So of course his how to write game rules is take something in the real world, try to contextualize it in a game that is based on the research you've done and has some fidelity to that reality, which, that's a way to do it. It's not the only way to do it. And it's not even, I think, the way people basically want, Specialty mages, D&D variant, Mike Gunderloy. Specialty mages, the mages of lightning. These are the first to take power for the sake of power. This is part 3 on specialty mages. I love this stuff. Just making shit up. Just whatever, man. I'm just going to invent a whole new way of doing mages and specialty wizards. This is before abjuration, masturbation, consternation. This is presumably before that, so we got mages of lightning. These are the first to take power for the sake of power. Those who spurned the search for knowledge. They are the angry ones, the slayers and spiters. Quick to anger and to kill. They care for no god and no man. Only for the treasures of the world, prizing the electrum produced and gold and silver by their bolts above all other things. Alignment is strictly amoral. Is that an option? Lawful, chaotic, amoral? This was a universal experience, it seemed, for those of us who came up in the 80s, is the number of players who felt like they wanted to play an evil character, but then really all they wanted to play was chaotic neutral because they thought chaotic neutral was the one alignment that let them do whatever they wanted. They didn't want, the thing is, it's not that they didn't want to be good, and it's not that they didn't want to be evil. They did not want to be held to any constraint. They did not want to behave in a consistent manner by any metric. They wanted their character to be allowed to behave essentially randomly and have that be okay. It's like, alignment or not, is that a good idea for a character? Level 1 spells, read magic, detect magic, as D&D magic user. Spark produces a 1 foot long spark doing 2d4 damage to any it hits, no save. R equals must start at mage's finger. Short circuits the brain of one target. That's actually almost sounds like a talent power, causing him or they to remain stationary for 1d6 hours. Range 60 feet. Shock arrow causes a 2 foot long lightning bolt to be projected as an arrow from a composite bow +2. Does 1d6 per 3 levels of mage, rounded up. Range 150 feet. Level 4 spells. Ion spray. I don't like science fiction in my fantasy. Oh, you don't, huh? Okay. Ion spray. Ball lightning trap. The mages of crystal. These are the builders and the nurturers, those who vowed to fight the lightning mages and their bolts of destruction. They seek to preserve and cherish the static beauties of nature. Have you seen nature? Is it static? Nature raw in tooth and claw. And to create more beauty in the undying medium of crystal. They fight the lightning mages whenever they can, for they are aghast at the senseless ruin wrought by the blasters of the world. However, though they appreciate the beauty of eternal nature, they are not very much in favor of life. Okay. For all life seems bent on consuming nature, like some form of reckless blight. Still, they will live and let live, and their alignment is generally lawful/good. Like, am I the only one? Am I taking crazy pills? Am I the only one that thinks this stuff's awesome? I love this shit. More amazing art. I love this stuff. What is that? I love this kind of Pat. Thanks, Pat. Level 10 spell. Oh, are you joking? Level 10 spells. This is for D&D. You're never in a million years gonna guess what the first spell in the level 10 spells is. In fact, are you ready for this? Level 10, this is a level 10 spell, right? Repulse, look at the other spells. Miracle, Air Walking, Summon Avatar of the Lord, Jesus, you mean like Yahweh? Repulse snails. Oh, number 4. I can repulse 4th level snails. Oh, thank goodness, Maldubious. Hello. What kind of game is this dude running? What kind of game is this guy running? Repulse snails level 4. This is the 4th version. We're beyond Repulse Snails 1 and Repulse Snails 2 and 3. No. We have finally unlocked the 10th level spell, Repulse Snails 4. Repulses any creature of the snail god. Did I miss a memo? When did I was out sick one day and we all started talking about Vectron. Was that, what happened that day I was gone? I missed the snail god memo. Up to 8d6 hit points for 11 plus the caster's level in turns. Miracle, usable once per week, drains the mage for 1 week, does anything within reason. Oh, okay, thank you. This is a pro zine. This is not a fanzine. This is not an amateur fanzine. Role-playing, how to do it. This is the thing I was reading from. How do you play a role-playing game? It's 1979, and they're only now in 77, 78, 79 is the idea that this is a role-playing game starting to become popular, right? And so if this is a role-playing game, then how do you role-play? Good question. This is not something that people had decided upon. What is reasonable in the scope of does anything? Well, I would say if it did nothing, then you failed. You were so busy with your reptile god, their cult, that you forgot about the cult of the snail god. Role-playing, how to do it. Much has been written and spoken in the last 5 years on the subject of role-playing games. Sadly, it mostly seems to consist of long discussions with regard to the damage done by fireballs, the propriety of inventing 47 different varieties of dragon, or even wrangling over whose reworking of what variation of which original, or maybe not so original, rules are best. Somewhere in here, we all seem to have lost sight of the key thing about the games we play, the role-playing. The first issue of Different Worlds was full of autobiographical details of individual lives and their relationship with RPGs. The major thing which stood out about all these articles, as I see it, was that no two people appear to agree on exactly what role-playing is. Therefore, I offer the following highly immodest proposal in an attempt to define role-playing as well as give people some hints on how it is done. Isn't this interesting? I think it's fascinating. Role-playing, like all good acting, so he firmly places the act of role-playing in a theatrical context. It is a form of acting, is what he's saying. Role-playing, like all good acting, is the art of being that whom you are not. Yeah, that seems fair to me. Now, do I expect you to put aside your entire cultural and familial background in one stroke? Am I expecting your fangs to drip with chaotic evil slime-like saliva? Or your pointed ears to ring with words you heard in your immortal elven youth? Of course not. There is no way any of us may make such absolute switch to another personality short of certifiable insanity. Even if we try our best, some residue of our own selves will remain. He's basically trying to derive the method from first principles, which I fucking love. This is amazing. There is a technique, a method of acting. I spoke too soon. I should have let Clint Bigglestone say it. A method of acting, if you will, which seems to have been shared by the best players I know and which has allowed them to adapt well to other personalities for gaming purposes. This technique also allows the adaptation to take place over an extended period of time, thus causing a minimum dislocation to the player's own personality. This was a big deal in the late 70s because players, once you got players making characters that felt real to them, that felt like three-dimensional people, that they had created, and they're not being created in a fictional environment, they're created in a collaborative gaming environment. When those characters died, people would cry, you know. Of course they fucking would, because this character that they felt like they know and they had invested in and they had inhabited just died. Right? They would have these extreme emotional reactions. They're perfectly natural, right? And those people didn't need therapy or anything like that. But for a bunch of fucking war gamers, they had never had that experience before, and it freaked them out. It freaked out the people having the experience. It freaked out the people watching them have it, because it was a wholly new phenomenon. Somebody having an emotional reaction to the result of a bunch of die rolls. That had not happened in Napoleonics. You might get pissed off at your opponent and feel like I could have beat that motherfucker if not for blah, blah, blah. But you didn't mourn. right? And all of a sudden now, yeah, that happened. And it's of course because I invested a lot of time and energy. I remember David Gilmour from Pink Floyd, when people are like, why are you guys fighting over this? He's like, I invested 30 years of my life in this band, in this brand, in this music. What do you mean, why do I care so much about it? Of course I have emotional reactions to these things. And that was a real thing they were struggling with, is how do you role play in such a way that you don't get lost in the character, right? Because they considered that to be unhealthy for various reasons that I think I know the reason for, but I'm not going to get into. They were really uncomfortable with the notion of this being an art form and all the things that go along with it, there are actors who can do a kissing scene, and what are they thinking while they're in that scene? They're thinking they hope they remember to get cat food on the way home, otherwise their significant other is going to be pissed at them. There are other actors who, when they do a kissing scene, they cannot help but feel those emotions because they're going through they're having all the physical sensation of the thing, and their brain just goes, well, these are the emotions we associate with this. You can't help it. But no one freaks out. Actually, I was going to say no one freaks out about actors and acting, but in point of fact, I think the opposite is true in certain places. Think for a moment. Hang on a minute. First of all, create the character. First, create your character. In all role-playing games with which I am familiar, except Bushido, this is done by throwing, not rolling, saving throws, not saving rolls, by throwing a number of dice and applying the results. How would that sentence be different if you just said throwing dice? Can you throw not a number? Can you throw dice but not throw a number of dice? Are you being paid by the word, Clint? Throwing a number of dice and applying the results to various named characteristics. In Bushido, you were given a total a whole new mechanic, a whole new game mechanic. And is it we're going to have a deck of cards? Is it we're going to use tarot cards to figure out what happens? Nope. We're going to do exactly the same thing they do in D&D, but instead of rolling, in Bushido, you're given a total number of points to apply to these characteristics as you desire. The method of creating exactly the type of character you want. You mean you just let people make the character they want? Verboten. At this point, I have to speak to those of you who can't seem to play anything except superior characters without a weakness in the lot. I have news for you. They're not as much fun to play as the quote-unquote handicapped ones, because there's no challenge in them. It's the limitations you have to work with and work around that make role-playing so much fun. And this, I believe, is modern received wisdom about what makes a good character. A good character is one that has flaws. And so you want a bad stat. I'm going to put my bad stat into charisma or whatever, because it's more fun to roleplay somebody who doesn't have any charisma, who doesn't have any intelligence. It gives me something to grab onto as a role player. That seems like really, really common and well understood advice, and that's what this guy's saying. Remember, Superman always wins, almost never works up a sweat while doing it, and is one of the most boring comic strips around. This is an editorial, folks. Besides, it has been my experience with super characters. Players are not really role-playing because the characters are actually just a shadow of the player as his or her idealized self, or they! Such characters have no depth. But they reveal an awful lot about the person playing them. So, different worlds, folks. Brilliant. Brilliant. I really honestly think that anybody with a passing interest in the hobby, you can go online and go find alarums and excursions, different worlds, the High Hunt. Go find any of these zines and just buy some random copies of it, and you will find gold within. And you'll be like, this cost me $8, and I spent the whole weekend reading it. It was a ton of fun. Meanwhile, we already did all this on Twitch, by the way. Arduin. I mean, yeah, because he was like 40 years old at that point, Rejack. So this is volume 1 of David Hargrave's Arduin Grimoire, which is super fucking influential, hugely influential in the early days of the hobby. A shitload of them, DM Swift. I think the High Hunt was a British zine. People on my YouTube video, for reasons that you are free to come up with your own answers to, thought that it was meaningful that I had a hard time reading the text, and that therefore it was a result of my own physical failings. And I'm like, hang on a minute. Where is a normal actual book? Is that RuneQuest right there? No. let's compare and contrast. Don't go anywhere, people. Actually, let me use the facilities, and I will be right back. Don't go anywhere. Actually, what will we put on for you folks to watch and or listen to?
Have you ever felt truly spiritual? The part of you that wears no clothes, that knows no boundaries, and has never physically touched bodies with another spirit. You have to realize that there's no better time than now for us to become the change we want to see. You know, to work a little bit smarter, give your love just a little bit harder than you ever did before. To be the ink in the pen that writes the new folklore, making change from nothing but earth, wind, and fire, to the notion to aspire to love and happiness forevermore. Have you ever felt truly spiritual? And just where do you go to find your peace when the talking around you is oh so loud?
All right. Blessed are those who stayed with the stream, even though the host had fucked off. So just so folks understand how tiny this text is. Here is Flea Mortals, right? And here's the text inside Flea Mortals, right? It's just so you guys can get a sense of how big this is. And I actually think this text is relatively small. You know, I've definitely seen RPG books that had more words per page, right? And then by contrast, here is the Unearthed Arcana, which is, I think, a little bit smaller, right? This is a reprint of the original Unearthed Arcana. Here, for scale, is the Arduin Grimoire. Look how much smaller it is. And then look at what happens when you open up and look inside. Assuming I don't end up with so we do have a page. So here's the Arduin Grimoire text. Look how much smaller it is. It's way, way, way smaller. And it's basically, it looks like the Arduin Grimoire is effectively an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper that has been shrunk down to fit with giant margins along the sides and top. So you end up with this incredibly tiny text. And people in my comments, which you won't see any of, are like, it's old man Colville and his eyeballs. And I'm like, I assure you that I have normal eyesight for somebody my age. New character type, the Rune Weaver. A new character type. Yeah, these are new classes. So what's in the Arduin Grimoire? I love the I am deeply indebted to many people without whom many of the ideas on these pages would have died stillborn. It has been a long, long year of trial and trouble, but made easier by friends, both old and new. Yeah, this is him talking about the supplement. How to play the game. Here's a foreword. My God, I definitely should have a camera pointing at this. Charts for XP, because there weren't any in 1974 D&D, I don't think. People are trying to link to, how can anybody read that? I mean, he's trying to save money, right? He's trying to save money. So the smaller the character limitation chart, character type, human, cleric, no limit, mage, no limit. So this, you can see, this is Chrome Toaster. You can go buy it. You can go buy the PDFs off of Drive-Thru-RPG, I think, and you can go read. It's like the third or fourth printing, so it's not exactly the original text, but it's basically the original text. It's a good question, Chrome Toaster 2. I have a copy of it in PDF, but not, well, it's an expired link. There's like a universal links and then timed links. I don't even know why they have timed links. So this is one of the first things you see in the Arduin Grimoire. Can you read this? Look at this. This is him showing you, it's kind of like his version of AD&D. The character limitation chart. What are the max levels you can be in these classes for these ancestries, right? Let's see if we can get in there. So there's cleric, mage, thief, etc. Warrior, psychic, monk, paladin. What are the classes in here? Limits on stats based on your species. A human male cannot have an intelligence more than 16. This is really interesting because Gary in the AD&D Player's Handbook says you will find within no baseless limits on female stats. And then you read the rules and you're like, what are these limits on female stats? And you realize, oh, that's him saying, well, of course women should have different stats than men. That's obvious. My limits are well reasoned and well thought out. Other people's limits are baseless, is what he's saying. And Dave Hargrave thought the same thing. He just had different numbers. So a human male can have at most a 16 intelligence. A human female, a 17 intelligence. So in David Hargrave's Arduin, women are on average smarter than men. Why are we talking about this? Why is this? Why were they so fucking, this is the thing I can't get over. And I genuinely wish I could go back in time and talk to some of these guys and be like, what are you doing? Why are you spending so much time talking about the difference between male humans and female humans stats? Why is that important to you? It's super fucking important to them. They spent a lot of time. A lot of these messages in these zines are people talking about. I'm like, what on earth what is going on? When was the last time you talked to your mom? What did you talk about? I'm just curious, right? Like, why were they so obsessed with that? You know, when I criticize or make fun of the various covers of the Player's Handbook over the years, and how many of them show somebody like kicking a door down. And I'm like, they thought kicking doors down was such a big, doors, the phenomenon of doors was such a big deal that they're going to put it on the cover of the Player's Handbook. The emblematic image of this hobby is a Conan looking motherfucker kicking down a door. Well, if you know how they played, you're like, yeah, well, doors were, there was like half of your strength was your ability to bend bars, lift gates, and open doors, right? And those are two different stats based on your strength. So obviously doors and dungeons was a big deal. So what is going on that you're constantly arguing about? What kind of psycho bullshit is happening that you're constantly arguing about male versus female stats? Who cares? Who cares? Is this what you think when you read fantasy, when you watch the Conan movie? Do you think about, is that what's going on in your head? Are you doing this kind of crazy gender calculus? To what end? To what end? Anyway, because 3 lines later, dwarf. If you're going to focus on differences, which you don't have to, by the way, you can have dwarves and humans and not get all hung up on, anyway, draw steel. More, see, here's the thing. 5e clerics is more like trying to fit their own perception of reality. Of all of the things that fall under the rubric of reality, which is the entire human experience and all physical and chemical and biological interactions, why is this the one they chose to argue over all the time? Why that one? Notes on fantastic beings. Hey, Zev and Franny, how you doing? I remember, Zev, you doing some voice work. I hope that was, I believe, early on in what you hoped would be a long and fruitful career, and I hope that or something similar paid off for you. I have very fond memories of working with both of you. Special abilities chart. Oh, be still my heart. Look, this is 15-year-old Matt is very happy with the special abilities for mages, illusionists, druids, and alchemists, medicine men, psychics. So we roll percentile dice. What happens in the long tradition of D&D nerddom, rolling dice, the 100 is exactly as likely as the 73 or the 12. But for some reason, they imagined that the higher your roll, the rarer, the more rare and cool your ability should be. Even though you are literally just as likely to get as 100 as a 1 or a 12 or a 37. But if you roll 100, if your wizard rolls 100 on this chart, magic competent, all magic with the ability to pick locks and disarm traps, as well as a thief 2 levels below your magical one. What the hell is this? You rolled a 99, -1 on all character abilities, -3 versus all spells and magic. So your character's stats are worse, but you resist magic better. On a roll of 96, natural ability to memorize 1 spell per level more than normal. Some of these are more interesting than others. Jesus, it's making my eyes cross. Yeah, 100 might not be less likely, but it's cool. I remember a good friend of mine, my friend Wallace, one of the best designers I've worked with. We were working on a game together, and he's like, I'm not sure I buy the idea of a critical hit, that it's just like random. It's just random when you're swiping through our Fruit Ninja clone, that every once in a while something crazy happens and you didn't do anything to deserve it. And I was like, yeah, but you play D&D, right? And he goes, yeah. I'm like, you like rolling a 20, don't you? And he goes, nah, yeah, you're right. Never mind, leave it in. I was like, all right, there you go. Game design, everybody. Special abilities for thieves, monks, ninja, highwaymen. These are different classes. These are different classes of character in the Arduin Grimoire. You can be a thief, a monk, a ninja, a highwayman, a corsair, an assassin, a traitor, a slaver, rangers, and all of those with a more or less secret nature. On a 76 to 80, you can naturally sense the value of all goods and treasure. You're a divvy. You're Lovejoy. I'm probably the only person in this chat that has any idea what that's a reference to. +1 with long swords and spears, but -1 with all missile weapons. Anyway, special ability chart for technos. There's a class in here called a techno. I don't like science fiction in my fantasy. Oh, really? Too newfangled for you? In fact, let's see. We got to be done soon, folks. We've been streaming for almost 3 hours, and I have to eat. I need to put food in my body. New character type, the barbarian. This is so interesting to me that here's the psychic, right? Which is a new class. And look at how the psychic, which is going to be really hard to read. God, this camera does a really good job focusing. The character is a naturally psychic person. He or they can never have any characteristic higher than 12, except intelligence. God, get out of here with this crap. Special note. And then there's level, points of what? Probably psychic points, experience points. First level, 0 experience points. Abilities. At first level, you can intuit traps. At second level, you can intuit secret doors. At 50th level, you can make people's hearts explode. Man, if you get to 50th level, you can make anything explode. If you can make anything explode, hearts, eyeballs, pigs, it's fine. You made it 50 levels. Jesus God. 50 levels. There must be 50 ways to leave your lover. New character type. So this is the thing I find fascinating, right? The psychic sort of looks like a D&D character thing, right? You have experience levels and what you get per level, right? So this looks like an AD&D character, albeit a AD&D character for ants. And then on the next page, new character type, the Barbarian. Yep, I was right. Or am I right? Yep. The Barbarian. Literally just paragraphs of text, no charts. What do these paragraphs say, you wonder? I will tell you. New character types. The Barbarian. Barbarians are uncivilized, I beg your pardon, unlettered warrior types that intensely dislike all technological ideas and items more complicated than a crossbow. I would have added, and they think poorly of people that use crossbows. They are extremely vulnerable to magic with a K and no C. Magique, I think is how you pronounce that. Magique. They are extremely vulnerable to magique, believing in it too much for their own good. They dearly love to fight and get a +3 save versus fear, as well as having a 50% chance in any combat situation of discarding their missile weapons and charging in glee. If you've ever charged, and if you've ever been to Glee and tried to charge there, you know how much fun that can be. The only exception is against undead, which they hold in superstitious awe. That's AWE, not awe. Not ooh, ooh. No, not like that. They will roll percentile dice, retreat in an orderly fashion 60% of the time, stand fast, but with a -1 attack due to their awe. No one's going to fucking play this. Are you kidding me? This is basically like an AI. This is basically like the dude is trying to write an algorithm for playing your character. Here's how your barbarian behaves. You roll percentile dice, and if you get this, then you get to do that. This is hugely popular. Excuse me. It is all, I mean, Convexified, it's all written by Dave Hargrave. How much of this he ever actually played? I mean, do you think he played all these characters to 50 levels? They move 35% more silently and have 35% better hearing than civilized types. How the hell do you, what is that? Is that a derivative? How do I have to go find someone else's? I have to find a civilized character in this game and then do some derive what 35% as likely as that person is? Hang on a minute. Thank you. All right, we now continue with your humankind, Amazons, dwarves, orcs of all types, as well as all goblin types and hobgoblins only can be barbarians. Elves are always civilized. Do they know that? Other types being either civilized or pre-barbaric in nature. Barbarians prefer axes, two-handed weapons, and spears. What's the techno? New character type, Runeweaver. Oh, here we go. New character type, techno. Oons, 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 oons. I heard a techno song once. Technos are specialists that disbelieve 100% in magic and work from strictly scientific points of view. They can, quote, figure out, quote, nearly any mechanical or technological item given enough time and resources. I love these windows into how people in the 70s viewed the world that fantasy gaming was happening in, right? And that it was explicitly a mashup. It was a mashup of sci-fi, fantasy, Conan, pulp, Fritz Lieber, Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser, pulp, Lord of the Rings, high fantasy. It was a mashup. There's like fucking Star Trek shit in here. They're like, yeah, man, whatever. They didn't ask for permission. They just took the shit they liked and stuck it in their game. Matthew Miller, we're reading the Arduin Grimoire. Say that 3 times fast. Well done, Maldubious. What's that great Eddie Izzard routine where he's making fun of Bones in Star Trek? Widdly whip. He's got a little scanner. Widdly whip, widdly whip, widdly whip. Captain, this entire planet is made of widdly whip. Okay, so what do technos, if I play a techno, what do I get? At first level, I'm a probationer. This is my class, my level title. Unironically love level titles. Abilities acquired, none. Second, you're a student. You have the ability to automatically figure out rudimentary mechanisms. So I'm just gonna, and again, look at how this chart goes. Have you ever seen a chart that tells you what your character gets from levels 1 to level 100? Oh, I'm well aware of it, Matthew Stone Street. Yeah, it's all about British foreign policy, the British Raj, about warlike people and peaceful people. It's all about coming up with political justifications for conquering people and exploiting them, basically. Yeah, it's well documented. So what do you get as you level up? The ability to figure out a simple mechanism, i.e. clocks. Ability to figure out mechanical traps in 1 to 20 minutes. A first level thief pick lock ability, increasing at 3% per level hereafter. Ability to detect mechanical traps. Ability to detect electronic emanations. I just had an electronic emanation just a minute ago. Ability to detect mechanical weak points, whatever the fuck that is. Ability to detect radioactivity. Radioactivity. So you can detect the presence of Kraftwerk songs. Begin chemical and explosive figuring. Begin simple construction, flintlocks. So at 20th level, you're a master techno. And you begin early medieval technology. So this is for the player that's like, hey, this is a medieval world, right? But I'm a modern player, and I know how saltpeter and ammonium nitrate, and could I just invent gunpowder? No, right? Make an int check, that kind of stuff. So this is for that person. Begin moderate construction, i.e. revolvers, bolt action, moderate, not modern, bolt action rifles. Begin elementary computer construction at 30th level. You just make this shit up. You don't have to play it or test it. It's aspirational. It's aspirational. Kind of the point of it is dreaming that you might someday get to 30th level. That's what they're selling you. It's like a lottery ticket. What do you get when you buy a lottery ticket? You're buying the opportunity to dream about winning the lottery. What's this? You're buying the opportunity to dream about getting to 50th level, which you're not gonna do. You're just not gonna play that much unless your DM is like, here, I'm gonna hand out 4 or 5 levels at a time, which people did. People did. Yeah, there was a great thread when I did that What Are Dungeons For video, which was kind of the first time for a lot of people in the hobby. If they started with 5th edition, if they started with my videos, it was the first time people ever thought about what kind of game is D&D? Like what styles of play does it support? And how does it support them? And there was a thread on /r/D&D Next, I think, very popular thread. And somebody, the very heavily upvoted, might have been the most upvoted answer, was somebody saying 5th edition sells you the fantasy of playing a heroic character, not the reality. You're going to spend most of your time looking through the player's handbook, looking at all this dope ass shit your high level character will be able to do, but you will never get to that level, and they know it. So they're selling you the fantasy of that. That is one of the reasons why Draw Steel goes from levels 1 to 10, because we wanted to make it actually reasonable that somebody who played every week for, I don't know, some number of months, would eventually get to, oh, look, it's Nasse Williams. Excuse me. What do I get at max level? Advanced at 100th level, I'm a master manufacturer, and I can just do this. What are the rules for this? Who the fuck knows? Advanced Sciences, Early Space Flight. Awesome, thanks. Witch Hunter, I don't know, you tell me. New Magical Treasures, the Javelin of Devastation. It's a 5-foot-long javelin of writhing, crackling black flame. 90-foot range. Effect, when thrown, it becomes a 3-foot-wide, 12-foot-long bolt of black lightning. Depending on its power, its attack... Jesus. Oil of Instant Immolation. Awesome. Oil of Instant Immobility. Oil of Instant Obedience. General notes on monsters, combat, and the like. The question has often been raised as to what can hit a mythological or magical monster and what cannot. So this is the Arduin Grimoire. It's just a whole shitload of rules that let you take Dungeons & Dragons, 1974 Dungeons & Dragons, and play it. Because there were no character advancement charts. There were no rules for how to cast spells or how to learn spells. And presumably, because Dungeons & Dragons was 3 little brown booklets, so is this. And there's the Welcome to Skull Tower. Is this an adventure? Matt does not know. No, just more character types. Star-powered mages. That sounds cool to me. Star-powered mages are essentially nothing more than normal mages with a built-in receiver for cosmic mana power. Oh, yeah, because they don't like the fancy magic system. This volume of the Grimoire is a mixed bag of magic and rules interpretation, fine art and mystic artifacts, and just a small bit of madness. Unfortunately, I haven't found a lot of this in what I've been reading, but I love David Hargrave's asides to the reader. And when his personality comes out, it gets really fun. So whatever happens, rest assured that I will be around for years to come. The thing is, it's a little, they were brave. Is that the right word for it? Brave, harrowing. The fact that so many of these, mostly guys, in the 70s were trying to find a way to make a living doing this. This was a brand new thing. You couldn't really be a professional game designer. There were a couple of them, Parker Brothers, Milton Bradley, Avalon Hill gets started in 53, I think. There were a couple of them out there, guys like Jim Dunnigan existed, but guys like David Hargrave, there was a great quote from Dave Arneson where he talks about being basically unemployable. His life had not led him to the kind of opportunities other people had, and he felt like working in the gaming hobby, which wasn't really an industry yet, was the only way for him to earn a living. And so guys like David Hargraves, when he's talking about, these guys would have health problems, they didn't take care of themselves, and they were always talking about how hopefully I'm around to write more of this, because they wanted to make a living at it. They wanted to turn it into a career, and they couldn't figure out how do you do that exactly. It wasn't obvious. It was not obvious. There were not well-tread paths. It's crazy how far we've advanced in 50 years. The Rune Singer, new class. What else is in here? Is there a table of contents? I suspect the answer is no. Nope, I was right. So here's David Hargrave's version of what does strength do? Yeah, the guys behind Dwarf Fortress. Yeah. Look at this fucking chart. Look at how crazy this is. So here we have strength, percent chance to open doors. We would see that all over AD&D. Ability with crowbar, attack, damage, grapple chance. It's kind of hard to hold this up. And grapple chance, carry weight, break wall ability, one hand weapon. What? Right. So the idea of stats having substats, which AD&D was lousy with. And this is him kind of doing his own thing, having his own very slight differentiation with Gary, depending on, yes, you should be able to use strength to open doors, but what if you have a crowbar? But what if I just want to break through a wall? What are my odds of breaking through a wall? Do I have a favorite draw steel class? Typically whichever one I'm looking at. What else is in here? What is Skull Tower? Is this a dungeon? What the hell is this? What is it? Does the dedication forward this volume? It's a result of a year's hard labor it's just more from volume 1. Is there an adventure in this? Why is it called Skull Tower? DMs versus angry players, or what to do when the players refuse to follow the rules. There comes a time in the course of human events where DM must handle a player or players that are disrupting the game and ruining play for all concerned. They may feel they have a grievance that is legitimate, or they may just be egocentric megalomaniacs. Listen, I thought we agreed not to talk about I'm not a narcissist. I'm an egomaniac. There's a difference. Exercising their own brand of stupidity. But whatever the reason is, the DM must be prepared to evict the offending player from the game, either temporarily or permanently. Once the people who play in your world realize that you mean business, they will be much more ready to act in a proper manner. This sounds very like Gary Gygax, by the way. His mannerisms, his way he spoke, the way he wrote. And this person is not aping Gary. This person comes out of the same background as Gary and these other wargamers, and refrain from disruptive and childish temper tantrums. Harsh language, you say? Not really, because in my several years of play, I have seen actions that have really appalled me by supposed adult and intelligent people. It seems that this type of game makes people truly identify with their characters, which is as it should be, but it also seems to make some people think that their character being killed is a personal attack on themselves. Right? You can see what was important to these folks. What was important to them? What were they worried about? What phenomenon were they experiencing in their regular game that they felt like they had to kind of go online, so to speak? Oh, here we go. Table of contents in the back. Arduin, its seasons and its days. Arduinian guilds and societies. Religion in Arduin. Let's see how David Hargrave's entry on religion compares with a certain Matthew M. Colville's version, which I just posted on our Patreon. Where I missed it. Where'd it go? Religion in Arduin, page 86. relatively close. Page 86 is a chart. Is a chart of offenses. A chart of laws in Arduin and what you get for breaking them. First time, second time, first offense, tax evasion, double loss, public whipping, 1 year. 1 year? 1 year public whipping? That seems like a lot. Am I the one doing the whipping? Oh, I'm being whipped. Oh, well, that very, very drastically changes my reaction to this. Arduin, A Capsule History by Dave Hargrave. Where'd the religion section go? Page count, pages. Oh, wait. Principal religious sects in Arduin and the world. Is there any? Arduin, its season and its days. Man. This. What's going on with my, I'm looking at a video. This is very strange. I don't know why that wasn't live. Sorry, I'm watching my own stream. The Arduinian campaign has been running for about as long as D&D and related role-playing games have existed. Game time has been more than 11 years. Game time has been more than 11 years. Got it. Over 480 player characters have been permanently killed in that time. Over 480 player. This game has been out for 6 years. Less than that. And this dude has killed over 480 player characters. And that is a stat that he wants you to know about. Many more have had to retire due to the wounds or afflictions acquired in campaigning. Many more. More than that many. All right, he just means many more. On the other hand, 2 characters have become dukes of the realm, and half a dozen are barons. 3 of them landed and collecting taxes, raising troops, etc., or even managed to woo the youngest daughter of the king. And just this end year, all Arduin celebrated their nuptials. I thought we agreed not to talk about my nuptials. So even though it is a hard and dangerous world, the rewards are usually more than a bold player can ever expect. Its history stretches back to the dim dawn of creation and the world's first rulers. Yeah, they all wrote like this. What's volume 3? The Arduin Grimoire, volume 3. The runes of doom, the pillars of doom, the doom of doom. More. Oh, look at this. Look at this dope ass illustration. It's a techno versus a focus. You fuck. Sorry. A Valpor. That's actually not a bad little piece of art. God damn, this text is so fucking tiny. More spells. Random lifestyle changes. Sorigs as player characters. Fraints. Phraints. A Fraint. What the fuck is a Fraint? These insectoid peoples are decivilized remnants of an interstellar combat unit of the dread Huruku Empire. A race of star warriors unbeaten in 3,000 years of warfare between the myriad suns of space. Each Fraint is born into his lifetime job classification, which is identified by his chitin color. Blue are manual laborers. Green are management, middle management, technical operatives. Gold are the nobility. The black Fraints with minor modifications such as eye coverings and breathing cylinders attached to their sphericals. That's it, folks. I need to turn on the AC. I am that has to be it. That has to be it. I am wiped out. I'm exhausted. We've been streaming for over 3 hours, and I need to stop and get something to eat. Thanks for hanging out, folks. I hope you had a good time. I hope you enjoyed the most recent video. We had a lot of people asking questions about Draw Steel. The game that we are working on, pencils down, is next month. Or better way of putting it is for the design team, content complete. And then from that point forward, just testing and polishing. The art team's content complete is, I think, February. If you have questions about Draw Steel, I stream all the time on Twitch. James Intricasso, our lead designer, also streams most Wednesday mornings. Although the last couple of weeks he's been like too busy. So who knows? But yeah, come by the Discord. There's a link. Maldubious, thank you very much. It was super cool hanging out with you folks on my Saturday. And like I said, I don't know when we'll see each other next, but I stream on Twitch all the time. I stream on Twitch because there's nobody there and no one pays attention, and I like it that way. So until next time, folks, remember the 3 rules. Rule number 1, imagine other people complexly. Everybody out there, everybody you meet, all the people driving past you on the freeway, the people behind the counter at the Taco Bell, they are all dealing with shit that you don't know anything about. And imagine the advice you would, hang on a minute. Let's not cross the streams. Yeah. So give other people a break. They are dealing with shit that you don't know anything about. The second rule is be good to yourself, because nobody else is on the hook to do that. You are responsible for that. Imagine the shit that you're going through. Imagine if a friend of yours is going through that and the advice you would give that person. That's pretty good advice. Maybe you should listen to it. And the last and the most important rule, and I think the only one we really need to remember, is life is uncertain. None of us are promised tomorrow. So eat your dessert first. Until next time, be seeing you.